as some of you in the chat were saying, there is exactly 100% chance of a drink. G'day, g'day. Bar Weep, Grana Weep, Mini Bong. It's lovely to be with you all again today. Hello to Knock Knock who's there in the chat. Slunnies, Get Fiddle. Wonderful to see you all. Hello. Welcome to your Monday evening or Tuesday afternoon or Monday morning, wherever the hell you are in the world. And cheers. Lovely to have you here. And also, with who we have here, joining me today is the wonderful AOS coach all the way from Australia. Anthony, how you doing, mate?
G'day guys, how are we all?
Oh, hi,
Thanks for having me on
Dimensional
the show.
Cascade. Oh, yeah, there we go. We've got a few people dropping on in there. Ricky from Demcast saying hello. Now, Anthony, AOS coach, no stranger, obviously, to Age of Sigmar, given that you're kind of, you're almost like, would we say like the Master Splinter or the Mr. Miyagi to a lot of people? Would that be a fair assumption?
No, God, no. I don't like the Daniel son.
Too much, too much
I'm
pressure?
like the annoying bad guy right now in season 2. If you're watching the Karate Kid or Cobra Kai on
Yes,
YouTube,
definitely.
uh,
Yep. Yeah.
what was the hero at the start,
Yep.
now the villain.
Oh, okay, right. So you've come full circle. You started out helping people, and now you've kind of like turned around, and you don't want anybody
Yeah,
else to have the goods, which is a very, I guess it's a very grot thing to do, right? Talk a
set
big
up a
game.
successful set up a successful dojo, training up the next
Mm-hmm.
level of grots
Mm-hmm.
to take over. Because enough is enough. I'm sick of seeing other factions winning, so I'm training up destruction players to kick face.
Yeah, beautiful. Tomb King Tristan, as always, dropping in just quickly enough to say hello and then good night. Lovely to see you, mate. Take it easy, but go get some wonderful, wonderful rest. Everyone in the chat, how are you? How's your day been? Anthony and I were just talking about the fact that in Australia, or like today, I had a bunch of people in the last couple of days, rather, who have been talking about how beautiful and sunny it is, how it's a shame that people have to work because it's like 20 degrees and sunny, and so everyone gets to go outside and sunbake. Meanwhile, I got a message from someone who'd taken a screenshot of the weather back in Sydney, and it was the middle of the night, raining and coming into winter, and it was still a degree warmer than it was here in the middle of the day. So that's where I'm sitting. That's the lifestyle that I'm living. How about you, Mr. Coach, Anthony?
Look, winter has come. Won't spoil any Game of Thrones. Winter has come. It's ended.
Uh,
But I can't complain.
yep.
Our winter is probably the equivalent of a summer in England. So,
Yeah, that's yep.
like they're celebrating 23 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Sunbaking, going out to the beach, greatest day ever.
Yep.
And 23 is cold for us. So,
Yeah, well, a mate of
um,
mine literally just sent me a Snapchat because he'd been out swimming and he's burnt his ass because he was only in Speedos. And I was just like, how in all of the good fucks did you get sunburnt in this? I mean, like, to be fair, he's quite pale of skin and red of beard, but there's still no excuse for getting burnt, like, on a cloudy, overcast day in Vancouver, Canada. Like, I don't understand it. Alex is saying, grow harder skin, you weak-bodied freak. I'm guessing that was directed at me whinging about the cold, and entirely fair enough. Yep, putting on a jumper at 23 degrees. I think most Australians would agree there. But that's it. Live in Thailand. Today is a standard day at 35. Yep, I've actually visited Thailand a few times. I spent a lot of time sticky, but loving stickiness.
let me
Yeah,
say
yeah.
let me say to that person in Thailand,
Mm.
Swadika. I don't know. It's been like 10 years since I was
Yeah,
in Thailand, so I don't know how my Thai is
yeah.
going.
Sawadee ka, kapung kan.
Kapunka.
Kapunkan. I'm probably butchering it. Digital Keegan's gonna be ripping us apart. That's all right. I know how to weigh or why. So for those of you now, Digital Keegan, please correct me if I'm wrong, and Anthony, jump in if you think there's like it's called like the way or the Y, which is where like you kind of put your hands together and bow, and it's like kind of showing deference and respect. And I believe that the idea is that to show it properly, you have to. The idea is to like way, and when you bow is to get lower than Y. Sorry, it's pronounced Y. Thank you, Digital Keegan. It's like to get lower than the person that you're showing kind of like deference or respect to. But I am not a short man, nor am I a particularly flexible man. And I didn't find out until about 3/4 of the way through my visit that I was expected to get lower than the other person. Now, I'm quite tall, and the vast majority of the Thai family that I was visiting are very, very short. They're vertically challenged. They're not a hazard to low-flying aircraft whatsoever. And so I suddenly like went from doing these what felt like small respectful things to just about folding myself in half to get below their kind of like head height and doing it. And I was mortified. I felt stupid, but apparently it's a but yeah, tall people struggle heaps. Yep, 100% digital, Keegan. What are your memories?
However,
Yeah, yep.
However, what I need to share is that what I teach in my dojo is that you need to maintain eye contact because you never know what your opponent's going to throw.
Yep, just like Age of Sigma, right? You never break eye contact with your opponent. You just roll the dice and then just say, "I got it," right?
You just got to look at them with confidence, and that's the number that you needed to roll. And you roll a 1. Who cares? This was the plan.
That's
this
it.
was the Bad Moon's prophecy the whole time.
Yeah, the bad moon told you that was going to happen. That's it. Which I think is the beauty of the bad moon, right? Like you just say, "Oh yeah, no, that's what it said was going to happen." Nemesis jumping in, or Nemesis. Lovely to see you there, D Chisel. Oh, bro, yep, just checking that it's period 190. Just played it. Yep, good. Thank you, Elf Bro. Just checking that and the exclamation mark Legion and exclamation mark Dispossessed. Now, I think Scrivo might have become aware of the little Nightbot chats that I slipped in there, but I don't know if Rob is. So we're still good. We're still good. Scrivo, I think, might have noticed it though. Nut chip. Unfortunately, there's no nut chip yet, Tomb King Tristan. But it's enough of that us having a little bit of a chat. We should probably get on to what people are here to talk about, and that's some war dollies. Now, over the weekend, BOBO 200-player tournament, or I think 192 by the end of day 2. There was a bit of a bingle. There was a drunk driver hit a car. I'm pretty sure everyone was fine, but it kind of like kept a couple of people from making it back to the next day. Apparently, one of the players, like the bloke who was drunk and driving the car, hit some gamers and then tried to run off, and he got run down, but like he got chased down by a player from the tournament as well. So just fucking superheroes left, right, and center. So basically, let's talk about that fucking event because we got some cool shit to chat about, and I've got Mr. AOS Coach here because there's some stuff happening where we're seeing a rise that I don't think anyone particularly anticipated. So we may as well have a look at it in a bit of a chat, and that rise is kind of the rise of Gloomspite rather, and yeah, I don't think anyone saw it coming. I'm guessing I know what the answer is going to be, but Anthony, did you see the rise of Gloomspite Gits?
It's about fucking time. On behalf of all destruction players, it's about fucking time.
Yeah.
We've sat there and we've watched Daughters of Cain. We've seen Ideneth Deepkin. We've seen, Skaven and Slaanesh and Flesh Eater Courts, and they've got their sexy new book and they've had their moment in the sun. And destruction, nah.
Yeah.
Kind of lag behind, no meta breaking, no stupid broken cheese. But it's about time that we've stepped up. But more importantly, this was their plan the whole time.
Yep, that's it. They were waiting for the moon to come in full, and that's where it's happened. It's a bit like why I was really stoked to see Seraphon do really well at the Australian Championship finals. It was because like I saw I personally see Seraphon as a really balanced, really fair army, and I think Gloomspite's kind of in the same area. They have a bunch of really good mechanics. They have a bunch of rules that tie in really well together, but they don't have any busted stuff. It's not like they've got a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon with an Ethereal Amulet or a double pile-in, always attacking first fucking Flesh Eater Courts Zombie Dragon kumquat thing.
And like right now people are complaining about Slaanesh's striking last on a 2+. Like there's none of that bullshit in our book.
Yeah.
Which one makes me sad because I don't get to play in the cheese factory, but at least I know that come the new General's Handbook and future iterations, we're not going to get nerfed.
I think,
So
yeah, that's the other thing. It's not like, to be fair, like, I bless your cotton socks, Caradron Overlord players, or Caradron, or however the hell you pronounce it, I've never gotten it right, um, who went out and bought tons and tons of ether cannons or mortars for their thunderers and built these lists. And it's like, you had to see that coming, for sure. That was too busted to last, like being able to drop down and nuke stuff. So yeah, I kind of like that for him. Dad Hammer, haven't been around for 6 months, but we'd be 2/3 the way through having a child if you were having one with the Honest Wargamer, and it would be a very, very attractive child if it got some of your genes, and not a very one if it got some of mine, but that's okay. Sorry, and Dad Hammer also says, you also give a good game to your opponents as well. Now, I dig that Gloomspite have a lot of negs to hit, and they've got a lot of they shut you down as an army quite well, but they're also a really cool army for like letting your opponent play, and it's fun. At least for me, I find it really fun. What do you reckon about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a Gloomspite player, and what's fascinating over the Bobo lists, there were 18 Bobo Gloomspite Git lists. They're all different. You
Yep.
know, when I look at some of the other armies that are going out,
Yeah.
they're very similar to their
Mm-hmm.
you got Daughters of Cain players, and most people are, doing the hag
Mm-hmm.
spam and the witches
Yeah.
spam. But with the Gloomspite, you've got so many different varieties of trolls, like regular wigs, and you've
Mm.
got everything in between. And I think it's what makes it fascinating is that opponents seem to enjoy the randomness, the
Mm.
ability to try different things, and it's not like the same type of army over and over and over again. There's commonalities, but very
Yeah.
rarely do you see a carbon copy net list. And I think that's one of the reasons why you haven't seen Gloomspite kind of come to the fold just yet, is
Mm.
because there's been no net list.
Mm. I also think like sorry, just quickly. Demcast, Dimensional Cascade, 2 months, mate. I'm barely even starting to show. It's just a little peanut inside of me, but don't worry, it's growing. It's going to be a wonderful, strong Waterloo player. Elf Bro, 8 months. You're about ready to pop. Yep. We'll get you a doula and like a bathtub full of water, and we'll make this nice. Ricky Demcast saying Trog's the best. He actually has, breaks my heart, but a beautiful display board that's like an old wrecked dwarven mine that's been taken over by his Gloomspite. Digital Keegan, don't worry, we're about to go there. We're about to talk about where they went. But yeah, I dig it. I think just the book, the list, everything about them has such diversity that they're interesting to kind of look at and watch, and I love it. I also love how many hobby babies we have in the chat, just coming along sometime soon. Let's have ourselves a...
You got a rough couple of months coming up if you got all these hobby babies.
Mate, I know, I've got so many little War Dolly children waiting for me. I'm going to have to make a dash out of the state, but that's fine.
I know Dad Hammer has his second one coming, but you sound like you're about to go on welfare because you are not going to be able to work
Look,
and raise all of these kids.
let's be honest. I had a bit of a loose time. Just before we jump over to the stats, sorry. One last thing I just super quickly want to say. I've been copping a lot of flack about all of this. The elevator that I apparently record out of. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. And I don't know how many people from Australia, how many people remember this. I grew up with a show called Saturday Disney. And where like kids would do little drawings. They were never particularly that good. Send them in, and then they kind of present them on the show and put them on the wall. So I'm going to put it out there. If you want to draw something, it can be in Paint, Photoshop, anything like that, as long as it doesn't breach the Twitch terms and conditions. I'll get it printed. I'll get it nice, clean, and like done up. Maybe even put it in a frame. Who knows? I'll put it on the walls. I'll show it off to everybody, and then that's what I'm going to cover the walls with. I know Scrivo's doing a little bit. But did you ever grow up with Saturday Disney or anything like that, Anthony?
No.
No, I'm just trying to think.
No.
I'm trying to think what
I mean,
comparable shows were.
I mean, like we had Cheese TV, which was
Yeah.
fantastic. That was during the week, and it had like X-Men and Spider-Man.
Oh,
and,
that was so good.
I'd come home in the afternoon and watch Captain Planet.
Yeah.
And I'd watch Street Sharks. And,
Oh my gosh, Street Sharks! I totally forgot about those. Can you imagine doing a Deepkin army of Street Sharks?
I think that would be incredible.
It's just all
And
sharks
I have
punching
thought
everybody.
about it, same as I've thought about doing four Deepkin turtles and doing bandanas up as the Ninja
Oh, that
Turtles.
would be
But
fucking sick. Yes, that would be
come down in
amazing.
points a little bit, and it might
Yeah.
happen.
But okay, so but anyone in the chat, if you want to draw a picture and then email or tweet it or do whatever the hell at me, I will. I'll get it printed out. I will present it on each show and I'll put it on the wall so that we've got so that we can all enjoy it and so that it doesn't look like sorry, Cyphers 42 saying biker mice from Mars. Do a Skaven army
Yeah,
of biker
bike of
mice from
mice.
Mars. That'd be
Yeah.
the fucking tits. Yeah, Dalmatians, Looney Tunes. Yeah, we're now just reminiscing about all of those
Will
shows. But yeah, good
Will you
times.
put up any pictures if someone draws you up as an elf?
I'll put like if you draw it and send it to me and it doesn't like breach Twitter's terms and conditions, I'll put it on the wall. If you send me if you want to sew a quilt or make something like I'll put it on the wall. I'll get a little shelf here or some shit. But that's beside the point. It's time for us to start looking at some hobby stuff. And what we're here to talk about, obviously, is the rise of Gloomspite and the results from Bobo. So first of all, just quickly, I only kind of want to touch over this quite quickly, but looking at these stats here, it's mostly about what we're looking at for the armies that represented at Bobo. Gloomspite gets the most represented, 18. So 9.4%, almost 10%, 1 in 10 players at this 200 player event were playing Gloomspite Gits. That's fucking massive, right? Like, what's your take on that?
It's so if we think about armies coming out, this was bound to happen, and primarily because Gits is an army that takes a little bit longer to kind of enter into. So I noticed in a lot of the Facebook chats and on Twitter, a lot of people had the old box set from 7th edition where they
Yep.
had a heap of grots or a heap of spiders. And to run this type of army, you may need, 40, 60, 100, up to 200 grots. Now, you may not want to take 200 grots, but it definitely takes time to build up this force. And I found that at CanCon. I ran these at CanCon, which was
And
two books after,
yeah,
2 weeks before the book
you were
drop.
hustling to paint as well, right?
And most of it was the stuff that was the old Moon Clan. I struggled to kind of get all the new stuff out. So didn't run Boy and Grots, didn't run a lot of stuff. But the people who have kind of jumped onto the fold ever since the books dropped, they've now had 3 to 5 months to kind of get in. So
Yeah, that was kind of my thinking as well. I think it's like it's an army that people love. So I get the feeling a lot of people probably jumped on board, and it's taken us this time to see those armies kind of come to fruition and then actually, excuse me, make it out. But I mean, what I think is really telling is that there are more Gits players than Stormcast players. And when Stormcast are kind of the OG, and I think like I don't think Stormcast are by any stretch of the imagination generic just because they're in the box. Like they're not. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh man, just taking Space Marines. They're not. They're cool. They've got a lot of like attitude and character depending on where they're from. But the fact that there are more Gloomspite lists than both Legions of Nagash and Stormcast, I think, is incredible.
I think people have had their fun with Stormcast. They had the Evocator bombs, and they've had their fun. And I think people are, for most people, they're like, it's not really how I want to play the game, and they might be looking for more fun and interesting lists. And we're seeing Skaven come up, we're seeing Flesh Eaters come up. We can look at the stats, but we've seen rises in certain armies. So,
Yeah.
and they've had their day in the sun.
Yeah, that's it. They've kind of been eclipsed a little bit. Sorry, just in the chat, people saying a Blastoise Leviathan would be fucking rad.
Is that Elf Bro?
Yep, definitely Hayden. Dad Hammer, Cheese TV was awesome. Zoids, yes, that was I think I had those. They were like you could build the toys as well, and they were kind of like battery powered, and they'd walk along the ground. Do I want Assault Bay Liam or a Hobby God Blake? Oh, that's a toughie. I think Hobby God Blake, just because I know he's a dad now, and I wish he was my dad, because I think he'd be a rad dad. Sam wants to know what your sink looks like in the bathroom. Okay, it's an odd request, but I'll answer it. The sink in my bathroom, it's kind of like a big kind of tan like mother of pearl bowl with a single tap and 2 little twisty faucets. Um, yeah, I don't know if that helps. I hope you're not planning on like killing me and disposing my body in it. They finally, Demcast saying that they're finally realizing the one true army. Similar to Daughters of Cain. Yeah, look, I think that's it. Daughters of Cain, the same thing. Took a while for those numbers to make it to the table. But yeah, I think you'd kind of expect to see more Stormcast just because they're in almost every starter box. And I think kind of the thing we're seeing now is a lot of those players who maybe started with Stormcast are now taking their next step, and I'm guessing a lot of them stepped into Grots. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
I'd agree with that.
and
I would agree with that. And the diversity in grots, I think you're going to see this as a long-term play because I can build a grot list now. I've got my Loon Curse. I can now play with Squigs. I try Troggoths later on, and there's so many wonderful combinations that this is a book like Legions of Nagash where you can be in here for a long time.
yeah, I think that's the fun thing as well. Where you know what, it's actually interesting. We'll talk about it in a second. Flesh Eater Courts went from zero to hero really quickly, but I think a lot of people had Flesh Eater Courts armies because first of all they were quite cheap to put together. Their start collecting box was amazing value, but people loved the models, they loved their fiction, but their rules were for shit. So there were a lot of people with Flesh Eater Courts armies that weren't playing Flesh Eater Courts. Now they got a new book, people were excited. Turns out that new book was top of the fucking pops, and people got even more excited. So since their book came out, they've dominated. But we're starting to see them slip from outside the top 5 and the top 10. They're still there, definitely, but I think people are starting to plan around them. Whereas Gloomspite, Skaven, those, and even to a lesser extent, Khorne, Blades of Khorne, they're harder to plan for because there's a lot more variety in the army, which, like you say, I think it's going to give them a lot more longevity. But just quickly, like just looking at those stats there, the reason that we're here to talk about it, Gloomspite gets 18 play, like 10% just about. And kind of the reason that I think that's pretty freaking cool, and the reason that I'm kind of excited about that is if we have just super quickly, we're not going to stay on here for long, but just super quickly to talk about it, I want you to look how far down the list Gloomspite Gits are about to drop when I switch to the win percentage table. So right now they're the top represented faction. When we order the factions by their win rate, they drop to about a quarter of the way up from the bottom. They go from the tippity top to just about the bottom. And I think that's fucking massive, right? Like, people are obviously playing them, they're just not doing well. And as a player, Anthony, what's your like kind of results been with them so far?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me how I've been going with Gits, and it's been a frustrating but beautiful road. And it's been frustrating because Rob and yourself and many people before me have said this that they are not an easy army to use.
No.
They are complex and beautiful, and when you play armies like me, which is squig reliant as well, I play heavy squig lists traditionally.
Yep.
They're very random as well. So when you start factoring in randomness and really critical moments where you need things to go your way, often it fails you, and that can be the win or the loss.
I mean, there's already enough random elements in the game, right? Like with all of the dice rolls and things like that. When you start having random amounts of attacks, random movement, and things like that, it very quickly it's that extra element of chaos. And while Skaven have that element of chaos, they're a bit easier to balance the risk to reward. Whereas I think with Gits, it's a bit harder because you can't even rely on your core kind of stuff to do what you need it to do. And I think
I remember one game at Adepticon. The Bad Moon moves from the corner on a roll of 2+,
yep.
and round 2, round 3, round 4, I rolled a 1.
Oh, God.
Every time it didn't move.
So the moon was just basically like, fuck you, you're on your own.
The moon's like, nah, man, it's sun time. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah. It was one of the,
then
when the sun's up, but you also can, I don't know if this happens in this hemisphere, but the sun's up, but you can also see the moon in the sky. And you're like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here? And the sun goes down and the moon stays where it is. That's a thing that happens in Australia. It used to freak me out as a child. I feel like that's what it was, right? Like the sun was out and the moon was just off there somewhere, being like, oh, I'm going to wait for him to leave before I do my thing.
He was being polite. He was being polite. He's like, no, you go first.
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
first,
exactly.
Son.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So like when you start factoring that randomness, and randomness does not go well at tournaments.
Mm,
You find often the most successful armies are the ones that you guarantee something.
mm.
Um, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun, and I feel like after months of gameplay, I'm finally kind of cracking through all of those life lessons to actually have a solid strategy and pulling home those decisive decisions that need to happen.
And I guess that's the thing, right? The more you play it, the more you're going to be able to create your strategies, balance everything together, so that that randomness is kind of accounted for. Like like when you see a really good player who plays their turn, if they're at the bottom of the game turn and they play their turn ready for whether they lose priority or gain priority, and that for me is one of the hardest skills to master in Age of Sigmar. Um, and I think it's kind of the same thing, right? If you know, like I know that I've seen a lot of competitive players leaning away from the Loon Boss on Mangler Squig because they're so random and they're so kind of hard to plan around. But I guess if you've played a shit ton of work with Squigs, you can plan around that random aspect because you have redundancies in place, or you only put them in a position where it doesn't matter if it goes off or it doesn't. That kind of thing. Is that what you mean when you're saying like your the experience is leading to the skill with the army?
Yeah, and even from a list design point of view, where like Maths Hammer,
Mm-hmm.
you roll. I remember rolling. Was at the Australia versus New Zealand game
Yep.
at CanCon where I played Fraser Baker.
Mm-hmm.
It was Nurgle versus my Gloomspite, and I tried to throw my Nuke Mushroom,
Mm.
which is 6d6,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, okay, mathematically that's about 18 to 21 inches
Yep.
threat range. I rolled like a 13. Uh,
So
I
he
remember
had a bit of tennis elbow. He just went like, huh,
just a
oh
little
damn,
bit.
yep.
And like I played Dan Brewer's Skaven, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to charge my Mangler Squeak into his lines. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to try to hop over and try to take out that Warp Seer
Mm-hmm.
on his bell.
Yeah.
And he moves 3d6,
Yep.
and I rolled a 4.
Good. Good.
Now knowing those redundancies, I'm like, okay, well I've got to have a CP up my sleeve.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's oh my gosh, in this morning's episode with Rob, Jet went ballistic as well. I think it's me. I think I'm triggering dogs everywhere, unless that was a very large cat.
And that was my dog who
Oh my
prior
gosh.
to this I was on a work call,
Yep.
and he decided to jump in the video chat to say hello.
Great.
But
And you know what? What kind of a work person could be upset with someone with a dog? You're actually the second because it is the middle of the day. So thank you very much for being on the show with me today. Same when we had Mike talking about Fire Slayers a couple of weeks ago. He actually apparently booked a conference room so that he could and just told everyone that it was a work call, and then was like closing business deals while he was on the line with me. So he was not only is he a War Dolly warrior, he was like smashing business goals at the same time. Demcas saying there that he played someone who cast the mushroom on for the first time on the weekend, and it went all of 7 inches.
wow.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, knock who's knock
It
knock.
happens, and
Yeah, yeah,
but what I wanted out of Gits initially was win or lose, I want to have a good game.
yeah, yeah.
And if I try to run my Colossal Squig 46 inches, which is its standard move, and I roll a 5, I just want to sit there and laugh and
Yeah,
just know that randomness
great.
is that's the game. And
Yeah,
opponent about my list, when you're trading lists, and like, well, what does this do? And I'm like, it could do amazing. It could do nothing. I'm not trying to like psychologically manipulate you.
Yeah.
This is legit.
But
I don't know.
it's kind of like it for you and your opponent. You're like, They're like, okay, how good is that Mangler Squig? And you're like, he might fuck you up, or he might shit his pants and die. Who knows? It's up to the fate of the dice. And to be honest, that's why I love Age of Sigmar. It's why I love War Dollies. And it's one of the only thing I've said it a number of times. I'm not going to fucking stop saying it because I'm a salty bitch. The only thing I really don't like from the Hedonites of Slaanesh book is that ability to make your opponent go last in the combat phase. In the same way that I don't like how many abilities the Flesh Eater Courts or armies like Deepkin have to have everything go first in the combat phase. Because for me, the two most interesting parts of Age of Sigmar are the priority roll and the back and forth in combat. So anything that messes with that for me, like for free or easily, I don't like, because they're the bits that I think are the most interesting, the most challenging, and the most tactical. So I don't like when those go away. Whereas
At least
Gits, yeah,
Deepkin's only one round or one turn.
and you know when it's coming,
So
so that you can kind of plan around it as their opponent as well. So yeah, it's not that bad, but I don't like how many negative play things are starting to seep into the game like that. Whereas Gits, I know that I have a game against Gits. The thing is, I don't know what they're going to do back to me because my opponent doesn't know what their Gits are going to do back to me. It's a beautiful thing when no one knows. It's Schrodinger's grot, right? It's either going to come out of the box and bite your face off, or it's already dead in the box.
yeah, 100%. And that's a beautiful thing in itself. But despite what sounds like a negative experience, it is so much fun. I've essentially had every game I've had so far has been fun. Win, lose, or draw, crushing, narrow wins. It's all great.
Yeah, Nutchip asked you the question, so I'll flick this to you, Anthony, because I think it's a decent one. So Gloomspite Gits, can they ally in a rogue idol? And have you looked at it? Have you considered it if they can?
I have considered the rogue idol. As I've considered the large gargant from Forge
Oh,
World.
the Bone Grinder, yep.
The Grown Grinder. They've got some awesome, cool options. The ones that I think about the most. So I'm just going to pull up my
Oh
allies.
yeah,
table
you got
just to
your
make sure
little
that
chart thing together.
I'm not bullshit.
Yep.
So can they ally? The answer would be no, because our allies are Bone Splitters, Git Mob, and Greenskins.
Right, and the
However,
Gargant is Monstrous Arcanum or something?
well, I think the Gargant might fit in because we have Gargants.
Oh,
Has
okay,
the
yep.
Gargant keyword.
Yeah, true, yep.
Not, but the Rogue Idol has not. I've thought about it if I wanted to run General Destruction because I believe from memory he gives additional casts. I think there's a magic bonus off the back of him. So if I was running like a super heavy endless spell list, like Nathan Prescott did back in the day,
Yep.
it could be viable. But for me, if I'm looking at Forge World, the number one I'm looking at is the Troggoth Princess, the Troll Hag.
Yeah. She is just a fucking spectacular. Not actually a cool model. She's really like just great rules as well.
Yeah, we need a hero that can go 5 rounds. For some of those, like I can't put a 4 wound grot on a hero scenario and expect it to hold, especially some of those ones that escalate over time.
Yeah, you're like, that grot is not going to do it. Like, one Everblaze Comet comes down and gets 2 little rounds of bop at him, and he's done for. So, yeah, I feel it.
But the Rogue Idol is viable if you're looking at General Destruction.
Okay, cool. Ricky Demcast saying Rogue Idol is available as an ally in Azir, so maybe that's been FAQ'd in or added in.
I haven't looked.
I know Monstrous Arcanum has their own, like, kind of... It's not compendium, it's a compendium, as Rob always says about his Legion of Asblar, which is definitely a compendium army, ! Legion. So apparently I reckon that might be a one there. So we're going to...
I haven't looked at it in 5 months, so that would be a good pickup. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right.
If that's true.
Speaking of armies and things like that, we're just quickly... as we're going to talk about the list in just a second that we came here to talk about today because I'm really excited about this list and I'm really glad you brought up Nathan's metric fuck ton of endless spell list because that's kind of the theme that did well. But just quickly, so the top 25 lists by percentage, right, for BOBO, and I'll just quickly rattle them off because some people might be listening to this, they can't see it. So of the top 25 armies, 24% were Scaventide and 24% were Flesh Eater Courts. Daughters of Cain were 12%. There were 2 Gloomspite Gits players that made it into the top 25, 2 Blades of Khorne, and then 1 each Beasts of Chaos, Sylvaneth, Deepkin, Fire Slayers, Mixed Order, which I think is fucking ridiculous, and Disciples of Tzeentch. So the top 25, not massively surprising at all. Like if you look at it, there's 48, there's 60% of the top 25 lists are either Skaven, Flesh Eater Courts, or Daughters of Cain, which we knew were up there as well. I think the impressive thing is that Gloomspite Gits are up there twice. That's just some solid fucking effort, and the reason we're here to talk is because of what I would love to look at just now, and that's that Gloomspite Gits came third. a podium finish at a 200 player tournament. That's just something incredible. Anthony, did that like warm the little cockles of your heart when you heard that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Not only that, but it was fascinating to see the player who came third,
Mm,
who is not a traditional gits or destruction
mm,
player. They've come out of nowhere.
yeah.
So it just shows you in the right hands with anyone can do anything with any list.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, and look, a good
but
bit
it
of
was great to
experience
see.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an army that you're going to pick up and automatically podium.
Mm,
But it was great to see so many different armies appearing in the top 50%,
mm.
and then as you just said, in the top 25% as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say the one thing that I think is a little shame is how heavily the top tiers are dominated by the same three armies generally. Um, Only because I think for the game itself, it means that there's like we see like we were just looking at there. If I'll flick back for 2 seconds, of the top 25 armies, 15 of them were from the same three battle tomes. Which is, yeah, it means that it kind of takes a little bit of that flexibility out of the competitive scene at the moment. But we've got a general's handbook coming up, so hopefully we'll see some stuff tighten up there, I guess. But yeah, I think that's awesome. And as well, in the top 10, we got Blades of Corn, new books sneaking in, Sylvaneth still hanging around. And you haven't seen Sylvaneth do very well for quite a while. Have they been? I've been trying to keep tabs on Australia, but it doesn't seem like Sylvaneth's been top of the pops for a little bit.
Sylvaneth have held.
Mm,
They've been up in the top, so let's say the top tens.
yeah,
But you're probably seeing a very heavy dryad build.
yeah, yeah.
I know my good friend Liam and co-host,
Mm-hmm.
will run up to 110 dryads, and for me, it's a poor experience. But it's what
Yep.
they have to do to win
Mm,
because Kurnoths at the moment aren't that viable.
mm.
But come that new book, I'm sure Sylvaneth's going to change the way they play.
Well, it's a
Uh,
lot of the thing was the change to trees as well, where I think initially it looked really good for them, the Sylvaneth Wildwoods blocking line of sight with the new edition. I think for a lot of their looking at it was great because you're like, shit, yeah, now I can hide behind it and you can't shoot me out of the trees. But then when you think about it, how much they relied on Kurnoth hunters with great bows and things teleporting into good positions to shoot out of them, suddenly they can't teleport into the cover and shoot out of the cover. It just removed a lot of that stuff, and the points hike on them as well also kind of took a little bit of the teeth out of them. But yeah, I remember Liam. I think it was for CanCon, painting up so many dryads in such a short space of time that he, in fact, I believe it was in Games Workshop Sydney, where I saw him enlist the help of some like young children who had come in to learn how to paint, and he was like, "Great, I'm going to teach you how to shade and dry brush." And he had like 50 dryads out, and he had this little like like working line of people. It was like, okay, so you do this, and then you hand it to the next person, and they do this, and you hand it to the next person. And I mean, hey, credit to him. An efficient way to get your army painted is have a whole lot of little minions doing it for you and helping out.
Especially 110 dryads, I would definitely look at some type of underpaid labor.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, I believe I tweeted something about him using slave labor, but at the end of the day, that's what they're for. They're for, right? It's to be to help us out. Um, Actually, so cool, Bunny. Veronica asking in the chat. She's only played against Gints once, and she'd actually like to know what. Like, so I'll throw this to you, Anthony. What some of the strengths and weaknesses of the army are in general. Just if you want to punch through a couple of them. She's saying basically, how do you beat them? There you go. If you feel like answering
So
it.
she wants more of the weakness.
Well, look, I guess she wants to know what to
Start off
be.
with one of the big.
Yeah, no, you go.
So the big strength is that they are a beautiful army to paint. They are so easy to build. They're so easy to make amazing, and they're just very diverse. There's lots of cool things that we could talk about with Gits, but I can read the undertone. She wants to know how to beat Git.
Well, I think she wants to know
And I
what to
think
be scared of as well. Like, what should she be afraid of, and what should she try to take advantage of?
um, it's the most obvious one is we have exceptionally poor battle shock, and the new forbidden power endless spell that causes -2 bravery, as well as some of the other banners and things that are out there that cause -2 bravery scare the bejesus out of
Yeah.
me. Because I'm already bravery 4, and unlike Skaven who get to double their bravery, or there's some crazy shenanigans there. My bravery doesn't get that high very often, so I'm using a lot of CP to burn and
Yep.
retain my grots. My armor saves aren't that great. I'm pretty random in regards to I've got a lot of good potential, but equally things fail pretty quickly.
So put the pressure
Um,
on and make your Gits player play for big plays, and they've got random dice rolls and then they've got random abilities in their army,
y-
and suddenly you're just
yeah,
compounding the odds.
and then shooting, we don't have very good, if any. Really, the magic phase is our shooting phase. Um, we got a couple of things that are shooting, but not very much. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
but at the same time, like the list that I'm building for Sydney Slaughter that comes up in 3 weeks has like 140 grot. So good luck getting through those.
Even if every shot hits wounds and kills a model, it's like you got to do it multiple times. Then I'm bringing them back anyway. Um,
Yeah.
uh, sorry, Digital Keegan signing in and saying that the only reason he has children is to help him do the painting. Um, Dimensional Cascade is saying that it's probably, and I think this is fair enough, because Cool Bunny plays Daughters of Cain and saying that Gits are actually a pretty decent counter to them, because the thing that I guess they do have is all of those negs to hit. So Daughters of Cain might have a fuck ton of attacks with rerolls and shit, but if you end up hitting on sixes, you're in trouble anyway. Um, they're and like Nut Chip, good point. Again, wonderful name. I haven't yet eaten a nut chip. I tried, couldn't find them anywhere. I will continue searching. But a good point being like they're immune to morale when they're near the terrain. But think about how many objectives they can keep near that terrain. Those units have to leave that safe zone. And yes, 100% Cool Bunny. Mind Razor, I imagine, is amazing against Gits because it's
Yeah, I
pretty
hate
easy.
my.
You don't like that one?
But I actually never use my terrain piece for the Battleshock community because you've got to be wholly within 12. So to get a large block of units wholly within 12 is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But I use it to be able to, if the unit is destroyed, bring it back on that 4+. And now I have a unit holding an objective or coming back that maybe Scrag Rock can then teleport with Hand of Gork
Yeah.
for a late game objective steal. So
And that's one of the things that's terrifying, right? Is when, and it's the reason that a lot of people are not huge fans of Legions of Nagash at the moment, is how easily they can recycle units. I mean, Grots, it's not as reliable because you got to roll a 4 up, but still, like, if you're doing it every turn, the odds are you're getting something somewhere.
I have most of the time I rarely lose grots, and even less than that do I bring them back. So it doesn't sound as crazy as it sounds. Bringing back 15 Black Knights or Hex Raids or 30 Grimgust, however, different story.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's just fucked. Especially with Grimgrass being a 4 up unrenderable save. You've got to do so much work to take them off the board. Breaks my heart, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Demcast saying avoid the nets if you can. I've struggled to do that myself. Like, yeah, I think that's one skill that every Gloomspite player ends up with is wonderful placement of nets. And speaking of all these Gloomspite things, let's do it. Let's have a look at the list that came third at BOBO 2019. So third, and just before we do, I just want to look at the others in this top 10. So the top 10, Daughters of Cain, Skaven Tide, the Gits in third, immediately followed by Skaven Tide and Beasts of Chaos. Now, this Beasts of Chaos list was a 30 Zangor and 18 Enlightened list, so really leaning heavily on the Zangor. Then we got Sylvaneth in 6th, so credit there. I think it was a Dreadwood list. Flesh Eater Courts in 7th, Daughters of Cain in 8th, Blades of Corn in 9th, and Flesh Eater Courts again in 10th. So in that top 10, there are, I would arguably say, 7 or 8 predictable armies that we would expect to see there, and 2 or 3 that we wouldn't. The big one being the Gits getting in third, because it's a very competitive field. Let's have a goddamn look at this list, and it's the reason that, sorry, it's taken so long to get to the actual money shot in this one. We've just been having far too much fun with all of the let's just say we were fooling around.
The Aussie banter foreplay.
Aussie banter foreplay. Yeah, that's what it was. We had a bit to talk about, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about this list. You're going to be far more of a master than me, but immediately the two things that jump out at me is the sheer amount of heroes in it and the sheer amount of endless spells. And I'm
Yep.
sure that you're all looking at it right now. And sweet Betty Dingus. That's 6 endless spells and a full complement of heroes in there. Actually, I'll throw to you, Anthony, because you are the master at this. So what's the immediate thing that you're noticing looking at the list?
It's a crazy amount of fun.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that stands out to me as an odd choice are the 2 units of 20 shooters.
Mm.
Again, our shooting is not very good, but we probably know why they're there, and we can talk about it
Yep.
later. I see the best of gits coming out here. We've got
Mm-hmm.
loads of bodies, loads of spells, load of casters. You've got some very interesting combinations with the sneaky snufflers and the loon
Mm-hmm.
boss, as well as the spore splatter fanatic. So um, there are a couple of different builds in kits, and I can see that Richie's kind of handpicked some of the best there.
And let's
And
say
you'll notice no squigs, so there's no randomness, as I mentioned earlier.
Richie, so Richie from Just Play fame,
Just play.
is a very tactical gamer. Actually, I've seen a lot of his stuff, and not a big fan of like random. Likes reliability wherever it can be there, and I think that might be why the list did well. Quick counter. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat because I'm not great at maths. Is that 210 points in endless spells? Because that's goddamn massive in a 2,000 point game. I mean, he's got the spellcasters to get him out there, but Jesus, yeah,
Two,
yeah. Sorry,
230 off my random maths.
230. Yeah, that's possibly more correct than mine. I'd never trust mine first one off the bat. Um, there's yeah, so there's all of those units of grots as well with maximum netters that they can take as well. Dimensional Cascade being like the perfect list. It's like a perfect storm. Um, yeah, there's just CP for days coming out of this army. By my look at it, the multiple attacks, I'm guessing, and just look at the amount of spellcasters as well, right? So Spore Splatter Fanatics. This is actually one of the first times I've seen them taken in a list that's done particularly well. Maybe because I haven't seen the list. But so Spore Splatters are the alternate build to Fanatics. Instead of a big ass ball on a chain, the way that's a pretty predictable move, which is spin into you, smash your shit up, and fuck you in the face. Spore Splatters are about, well, first of all, they block line of sight to anything behind them, which makes them a fantastic screen. But they're not too bad in combat, are they, Anthony?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm currently using them. I've decided to move away from squigs to a pure 100% grot list, and they are definitely an automatically include. However, they're not, and I haven't seen all of Richie's games, so I'm sure he might mention something later. But the reason you take spore splatters potentially isn't for the damage, and you don't want to get them into combat till later. Where this really comes into play is the combination of the loon boss with the sneaky snufflers with the spore splatter. So that three little combination.
Yeah, and
And
often that's seen taken in minimum numbers as well, right?
absolutely, and the reason you take that is because it will. So the sneaky snufflers can sacrifice their movement to give +1 melee attack to a unit within 12. The spore splatters get to do a very similar ability. So now all of a sudden, our grots are getting +2
Yep.
attack to one unit, just only one unit. And then the loon boss's command ability on a roll of a 6 to wound, you're doing mortal wounds in addition.
So yeah, all of a sudden, even 20 shooters with an extra 2 attacks each, doing 6s to wound.
It's only melee.
Oh, only melee. Sorry. So I'm guessing
It's
the
only
stabbers.
melee.
Yeah.
So you put it on a unit of stabbers. So you've got let's say the spears. Let's say the 40 spears or the 60 stabbers. Stabbers hit on 4s, wound on 4s. The nets do 3 attacks as well. So
So they're 5.
About 5 attacks, and then 6s do mortals.
Yep.
In addition, that's a lot of, and they're 25 mil bases, so you can get a lot in. With the spears, you're fighting in essentially 3 ranks. That's a lot of mortal wound output. And then in return, you're -1 to hit me, and I've got 40 to 60 bodies.
And
so,
also, depending on where you place those spore splatters, you're not being able to shoot the targets you want to shoot until you've targeted them as well. It's a good little combo too.
It's a great little combo. It is hard to pull off because it is wholly within. So
Yeah.
40 to 60, 60 you've got to be really tight with your numbers. But yeah, it's a good little combination.
But I mean, look, altogether though, it's a 260 point combo. So if it doesn't work, it's not like you see some armies that invest a lot of points into making their combos and their things work. And if you kill one little point of it, like say when Cunning Ruck for Bone Splitters, for those who don't know, Cunning Ruck was fucked. It was basically where Bone Splitters would buff a unit of Arrow Boys with multiple buffs, multiple units, and then a War Scroll Battalion ability that let them shoot multiple times, and they'd shoot like 240 shots a turn, stuff like that. It was incredible, and like generating extra shots, doing all of that kind of stuff. But it was a big investment, and if you killed one character, you took the teeth out of that ability. With this, it's only what, 240? So even if it doesn't work, or 260, if it doesn't work, you're like, oh, that sucks, but it was only a small amount of my army. Like, it was an eighth of my army. I'm not particularly disappointed, and I'm not relying on it to do that. So yeah.
So
Sorry, go on.
there's actually an interesting use of Spore Splatter. So I've seen a few smart destruction players ally the Spore Splatter in for the Cunning Rock. So you block line of sight from that hero that you want to kill.
Yeah, that would actually, yeah. Anything that blocks line of sight is amazing. It gives you so much flexibility. Oh, Night Scribe, been subscribed for 3 months. Mate, I'm starting to feel it. Our little hobby baby. I'm getting some weird cravings. I keep wanting tripe and chocolate in the middle of the night. It's weird, but I'm so glad that we had this hobby baby together. It's going to be a wonderful little War Dolly player, as long as it doesn't play 40k. No, that's a lie. I'm actually starting to learn 40k. I know. I've been doing some weird stuff. But yeah, also Demcast commenting, and it is completely right. Snufflers being 2 wound models, it makes them pretty decent chaff as well.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, like just little 5-man units of squigs, or squig units of squigs. With 2 wounds each, they're like 10 wounds in a 5-body unit is surprisingly durable. Like, you don't expect it on little 25 mil bases.
Yeah, the Snufflers are 32s, but yeah, 100%. Like, they are cheeky little 10 or 12 wound units. Yeah, don't know times where they've kind of done their job and like the mortal wounds are like, they've done what they need to do, and yeah, just throw them into combat or like retreat them and kind of hold an objective.
Flick them away. Sorry, 12 wounds. 6 models, 12 wounds, Demcast. Yeah, and then...
Yeah, well, originally they were 5 wounds, but then GW realised that there were 6 in a box. They're like, you can have a 6th one.
Yeah, you know what? You can take an extra one. Not like they did with Ogres, which really disappointed me, where they were like, Ogre Bulls are in unit sizes of 3. I'm like, sweet, they come in for Gutbusters, they come in a unit box of 6, so 3s is fine. But then Iron Guts and Lead Belchers come in a box of 4, but they're taken in units of 3. So I was like, but I need to buy 2 boxes, and even then, I don't have enough to make a full roundabout unit without having... Anyway, it broke my brain. It wasn't great. So that's obviously one of the little combos in there. Just looking at all the spells, I know some of them, I don't know all of them. What are the big spells that you reckon this list took people by surprise with?
So they're all wonderful. Before I do that really quickly, the Loon Boss. I've seen a few comments recently asking if they take a Loon Boss, what's a good command trait?
Yep.
And Dead Shouty is a great one because you get to use your command ability without spending a CP. So,
and that's once a turn as well, isn't it?
Once per battle.
Per battle, sorry, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, once per battle. But you can, I believe, from memory, you can stack, or you can cast the Loon Boss's command ability more than once. Obviously, not stacked on the same unit, but if that Loon Boss was in between 2 Grot units, he could boom boom. Both
and all of a sudden, you just got mortals coming out for days.
Take that, Grimghast.
Yeah. You're like, where's your 4-up save, unrendable god now? I actually think another really cool thing for this list is if you were looking at it on paper, a lot of those little combos aren't obvious. So if you're taking this list to a tournament, it'd be really easy to slide it by some people because they'd see the endless, like looking at it, right? You see the endless spells and you're like, outside of magic, I don't see where the damage comes from in this list. It just looks like a couple of other things. And then these combos start going off and all of a sudden, like Hand of Gork for me is possibly one of the best spells in the game. It is so useful. It can get you anywhere you need to be as long as you get it off and roll decent. But yeah, I dig it. I reckon this list as well, you're immediately going to see the boat dude from Forbidden Power into this list. Because I think that his ability to flick another unit and teleport it around will be really useful. But yeah, we're talking about the spells. How do these spells tickle you?
So he picked the best of the
Mm-hmm.
spells, and you'll notice there's redundancy as well between the Web Spinner Shaman and the Web Spinner Shaman on a Ragnarok,
Yep.
where he's taken both Sneaky Distraction. So if
Mm.
he loses one, or he gets the best of both worlds, where he can choose where they go. So
Yeah.
Sneaky Distraction is an awesome Spider Fang spell. So that comes from the Spider Lore. And basically, it will allow you to cast essentially a -1 to hit to units if they're wholly within 12 of the caster.
Mm.
So when you start to think about the stacking of the Barb Nets
Mm-hmm.
plus the Sneaky Distraction,
Yep.
now you're at -2 to hit.
Out throwing the Geminids as well. So you can, if you've got
Then
that big unit of evocators or something, you're at -3 to
well,
hit, friend.
then you add the Geminids, or if you notice on the Web Spinner Shaman, the Gref the Charm, which is another -1 to hit.
And look,
All of a
those
sudden,
Arachnarok spiders actually make for pretty amazing chaff as well. Like they'll hold with a Griff Feather Charm and all of the negs. Suddenly you're like, I'm gonna give you a monster that's gonna hold up this big ass beat sticky unit for turns.
yeah.
I also dig. I actually think that was one of the things that jumped out for me as well is having two models with the same spell. You very rarely see that, right? Like most of the time, people are like this is this spell, this is this spell, this is this spell, and people don't really think about what happens when their opponent targets that caster, or say Daughters of Cain, that priest, or whatever. I actually think it's really clever having, like you say, that redundancy or that ability to have a wide battle line and be able to cast that spell where you need it. It's
And
clever. I like it.
this is in Legions of Nagash armies that have
Mm.
a bunch of necromancers
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they do pick two or three, fading vigor or some particular spell.
Mm.
But yeah, that up on is
Mm.
and then the three best Moon Clan spells are Hand of Gork, which teleports a unit outside of 9 inches
It's
anywhere
just
else.
it's a fucking spectacular spell.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've found a Gloomspite player who doesn't.
It's awesome, especially as a late game threat. The amount of
Mm.
times I've won an objective on turn 4, turn 5, even teleporting a unit of dead grots that come back at half. Teleport a unit of 10 grots on a back line, easy to squeeze into.
Yeah.
Thanks for that objective.
It's also, I think it's really nice what Gloomspite do that not a lot of armies can do. You can fling your army forward, and when you lose units, if they come back, you can then return them and pop them on your backfield objectives to not have to worry about losing them. I know for me, one of the big things I always have to plan around is how I hold my objectives while I go for my opponents. And it gives them a lot of flexibility. Sorry, Nutchip in the chat also pointing out what I missed. I don't know if you missed it as well. I always forget this one because Palisade. I think about the fact that you throw the Palisade out, it blocks line of sight. I'm always thinking about stopping shooting or movement. There's a potential for a -1 to hit from that as well, and another -1 on the Loon Boss. Like Jesus.
There is a lot of minuses, and then Scuttle. There's a sneaky combination between Scuttle Tide and Prismatic Palisade, which are two, I guess, walls essentially. You can start funneling people into the middle, or you start funneling people to where you want them to be, or denying their movement.
I think it's genius. Like I've seen a lot of people use. I actually saw a Fire Slayers player using an allied in Stormcast Wizard to cast Palisade, and then the Fiery Priest Magma Wall, whatever the hell that is, to basically create a V in front of an objective, stopping anyone else from getting in, and then just parked a hero in front of that. So anyone wanting to get to that objective, there was nothing with fly, they had to go through that one hero. And it was great. It was just basically like he created like this little challenge corridor, and if no one could kill this Grimwrath Berserker, no one could take the objective. It was fucking great. But it was also a genius tactical play.
Without ruining my Sydney Slaughter play,
okay, yep.
I'm doing that with the mushroom, the nuke mushroom. So you get funneled in, and then you coming into it's called the mushy V, where it's like the mushroom nuke, and then the two the two palisades slash scuttle tie, and then you kind of filter into this big nuke mushroom that does wounds,
So,
mortal wounds on 5.
so
So
okay, but all I'm remembering is I think it was in Mighty Ducks 2 when they played Iceland, where they tried the flying V and Iceland just smashed through it. Correct me, Twitch chat, because I know I'm in Canada. You guys probably know hockey movies way better than I do. But sometimes the flying V doesn't work. Do you have some plans in case the mushy V falls apart like it did against Iceland?
I'm just going to look him in the eye and quack.
Just quack,
Quack,
and
quack,
whenever they ask you a question about your game, you just don't break eye contact. You just keep saying quack, like really seriously and honestly at them.
And I'm not going to win best sports.
That's true. That's true. But let's be honest. Like I was always rooting for Iceland. The Mighty Ducks didn't deserve to win that game. Iceland clearly worked harder, had devoted more of their lives to it. They took a win off of somebody else who deserved it. At me, I'll fight you. Team Iceland all the way. Just like in Terminator 1, I was really disappointed that the Terminator didn't kill John Connor, because then we wouldn't have all of these terrible spin-offs, but we wouldn't have Terminator 2. That's a toughie. All right, so before we move on from this list, anything else that you want to have a quick chat about? Anything that jumps out that you want to point out as to why this list podiumed at a 200-player event?
So the spells,
Yep.
the Great Green Spike is a wonderful spell that powers up based off the unit. So basically, the caster will look at, let's say, the unit of stabbers, and if there is more than 20 models, it actually becomes a D6 mortal wounds onto something it chooses. So basically, like powers up, which is pretty amazing, and then Itchy Nuisance, which is going to be fighting last at the end of the combat phase. So. Which is pretty amazing. But overall, a lot of wounds. There's 192 wounds plus obviously the ability to come. Lots of spell casting. Has lots of damage output potentially from the combination we spoke earlier, and then the sheer amount of chaos coming from the endless spell.
That's actually a big takeaway for me. And now I played Nathan before the Gloomspite book, but back when he had his. He had an endless spell army that took every endless spell except for the Purple Sun. And in turn 1, he cast all of them. This was when I was over there in November of last year. And basically, he explained to me his game plan. And it was, I cast all of the endless spells and I fill the board with them. And I have so many bodies that I don't care if they come back my way. And then I practice this list and I train myself so that I'm the only one who can see through the utter fucking chaos I've created. Now, unfortunately, this was still quite early in him practicing with the list, and he hadn't yet learnt how to see through the chaos, so he just made chaos to confuse us both. But I definitely think like this list, it probably took a lot of practice or a lot of planning, and knowing Richie, like knowing the game that he plays and how talented he is at War Dollies, I 100% think that would have come through with it. But yeah, you throw this many out on your opponent, even if they win priority and they give it to you so they get to move the first one, if you get 3 or 4 of these out, it is really hard for your opponent to choose which to prioritize, especially when you have spells like Quicksilver Swords in there and Geminids, which have such a long casting range and move so fast that you can cast them and know that they're not going to come back into your lines.
And if they come back to you, they're likely just to hit stabbers.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the likelihood to hit your chaff is high. While I can't lose, a multi-wound Stormcast or Ironjaw's model, but that. The other one I just want to really call out, I think is pure genius, is the 3 shamans. So the Fungoid Cave Shaman, once per battle, can cast an additional spell. So it allows him to cast an endless spell and Itchy Nuisance or the Green Spider or Hand of Gork. And on a 4+, it generates a command point. So potentially there is 3 command points plus 1 from the round. And then under the Bad Moon, you get an extra command point. So
and I think
there's plenty of times under a Gloomspite game, I'm sitting on I don't know if Dadhammer's still in the chat, but my game against him, I had like 12 command points at one stage. I had more command points and command abilities, and thank God for the Realmscape features, because Inspiring Presence, re-rolling charges, 6-inch auto runs, I've got them up the wazoo. So
sorry, Digital Keegan in the chat just asking, they only get control over 1, not all of them. I mean, once they cast them, they're all out there. But
Yeah.
for those who haven't experienced the joy of endless spells, when you roll priority, whoever goes first, the player going second that battle round gets to move the first endless spell, and then you take it in turns back and forward to move each endless spell until they've all been moved and there's none left. Which means that if you throw all of them out on the board, it means that your opponent, you can potentially throw stuff back at you. But looking at this, you look at the Geminids, Quicksilver Swords, Aether Void, Pendulum, and Prismatic Palisade. That's 4 of those spells that you can pretty much guarantee aren't going to be hurting you if your opponent gets control of them. The Malevolent Moon and the Scuttle Tide, they're also not that big a threat. The main problem is that your opponent might move them out of the location that you want them to be in. But realistically, looking at these endless spells, there's not a lot of risk in them. If you cast them all turn 1, there's not much risk, even if your opponent gets priority, gives it to you so that they get to move one of them first. There's not much risk, but there's a lot of reward. And I think that's what this list feels like to me. And maybe that makes it not very Gloomspite. It feels like a list that is very reliable, very structured, very well planned. I guess the only thing that's disappointing is it's not being led by the Loon King, who I believe, or Skarsnik, who I believe would have been 2 of the perfect Loon bosses of the old world and the new world, to be intelligent enough to play it. I don't believe that one little 70-point Loon boss was clever enough to put this army together. It took a higher power to do it.
I mean, his command ability is dead shouty, so he must just have the loudest voice, and he won.
That's true. That's true. You know, he just kept shouting at his opponent until his opponent was like, you know what, fuck it, it's fine.
Scragrot is 220 points, so
yeah.
Essentially, he's gotten 3 Fungoid Cave Shamans for the price of one Scragrot. So
and the Fungoids are 5 wounds as well instead of 4, correct?
Yeah, no, they're 4 wounds,
4 wounds,
but they have a 4-up
DPI,
wound or mortal wound save. So
yeah, that's right. So they're effectively kind of a 6 wound model, if you think about it. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, an 8 wound model. 6 wound model to reliably kill them.
And for this list to work, he needs more spells.
Yeah, definitely. And that
spellcasters.
Dad Hammer is still in the chat, and he says it was insane how many command points you still had. I imagine by the end of the game, you've probably finished with a ton of them up. But yeah, I think it's a fucking ton list. I mean, just quickly, I'm counting. If you double down on all of those Fungoid Cave Shamans in a turn, you've got 8 spells in a turn. That just 8, 9.
That ability is once per battle. So,
but yeah,
in
like,
one,
yeah.
In one round, he's got what the shaman. He's got two Spiderfang shamans plus 3 fungoids. Mm-hmm. So that's 5 spellcasters. If they use their mushroom, that's another 3. So that's 8 in one round of magic, which is mental.
And ultimately, the thing is, there's so many magical threats in this army that you can easily draw out all of your opponent's dispel attempts and then go, oh yeah, hey, fun fact, I'm going to cast another 5 spells. Welcome to the party. So yeah, I love this list. I think I hate that it speaks to my dwarven soul in that it's a reliable list for greenskins. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's true to their fiction, but it is the list that came 3rd at a 200 player event. So clearly he's got some kind of secret gubbins going on, and for that reason deserves to be adored, loved, and praised. And for that reason, if you're in the chat right now, just some snaps for Richie, because that list was fucking baller, right?
Kudos to Richie. This is amazing. This is thank you for leading the charge, showing us what was possible. I think there was a stat back in the day that no one thought they could run like I can't remember. It was like a particular speed and distance, and then one person broke that speed, and then in that same year, like 10 other people broke a record that couldn't been done in 50 years. So basically, long story short, Richie is our Olympian. Mm-hmm. We're all now going to start breaking the speed barriers and start winning tournaments. So
well, I mean,
kudos.
Gloomspike Gits, their win rate was 44%. So, and he won 5. So he went from a 44% win rate to a 100% win rate. By the stats, he should have only won 2 games, which you can see they're about 3/4 the way down the list there. They absolutely smashed it. He is, let's just also say, he is a very talented player. in the same way that Dan Brewer over in Australia won and generally did well with an Eshin army back in GHB 1 before we got the new book for Scaventide. He is a very talented player who had a subpar army. Here you have a very talented player with what I would say is a fairly balanced army and did great things with it. Now that's not to take anything away from the Daughters of Cain or the Flesh Eater player who came 1 and 2, but when you think about it, like you've got to give credit where credit's due. And I think that while those two were probably very talented players who put together wonderful lists and played a very competitive game, in Richie's Gloomspite taking third, you have someone who played a fantastic game with an army that he had to work outside of the box to get there.
This is not an army you could pick up and win a 5-game tournament next weekend.
No.
You're running around 140 grots. You're running around a whole bunch of endless spells, and every priority roll there's going to be madness. So this is something that takes a lot of time and practice. But it's the fun that happens in between the randomness and those lessons that is the real reward. But I love this list. I think it's fantastic. Hopefully I don't see too many carbon copies, but I hope that people take away some of those combos and bring them into their own builds with Troggoths and Squigs and all that great stuff that the book offers.
Well, yeah, look, I think the lesson there is that mostly Gloomspite Gits have a lot of randomness to it, so perhaps putting in a little bit of reliability is a good idea. If you want to have only Squigs, that's a great move. However, if you are only relying on Squigs, then you've got a very unreliable army list up your sleeve. Now, sometimes it's going to shit mix your opponent and surprise them, and sometimes it's not. And that's a tricky one to call, right?
Yeah, I'll give a shout to Lyndon Wedgwood, who was the second highest Gits player at BOBO, and his list is completely different. He's got Scragrot, he's got the Loon King on Manglesqueak, he has a Madcap Shaman, he's got 15 Boingrots, he has 10 Loon Smasher Fanatics. So his list is completely different. And then when you keep going on to go to the Honest Wargamer, they've got all the lists on there. There's a list that was like almost all trolls. So
yeah, and then the person who wrote his entire list from the perspective of a Trog and took an only Trog list. That just fucking spectacular. Gorelord in the chat. What up, mate? Nice to see you here. Gorelord, shout out to you, Anthony, saying we've been saying using the spells, and he's commented in all caps the mush V, which just sounds like some kind of mushy V transmittable disease that we need to raise awareness for and get some kind of immunization against. Yeah, Rebel, completely correct. Number 6, Sylvaneth being in there at number 6, I think is good. I think Sylvaneth can do well. I just think it's harder to do well with them. It was an Alariel list actually Alariel, Drycha, and a Dreadwood, I believe. I might be wrong. And the Beast of Chaos getting there in at 5th was, for those who've joined us a little bit late, was Shaman, Zangor Shaman, 30 Zangor on foot, and 2 units of 9 Zangor Enlightened. So really leaned on the Zangor, which has been a successful list and has done quite well.
Kind of cheating Beast of Chaos, not like legit Beast.
Yeah,
we're not talking like we're talking like this shifty Zench version of it, but it's still obviously Beast. But show me a list that has Gores and Ungores and Psygores.
I mean, look, it had Gores and Ungores, but very much they either felt like chaff or summoning sacrifices. Elfbro saying, Alariel is definitely a 50-50 choice. I think so, but her summoning is real good. So after she summons, as long as she gets a turn 1, I think the thing is she doesn't have to do as much work as say an expensive model like the Celestant Prime who doesn't get to summon. But yeah, so Anthony, I've kept you for well over an hour already. Do you have a little bit more time, or do I need to say goodbye?
As long as no one from my work is on here.
Mate, okay, if anyone here knows the AS coach, you leave him the hell alone.
Don't go into LinkedIn and like type in AOS.
Yeah, everyone here, stay off LinkedIn for the next little bit, and we're going to be absolutely fine. Elfbro, Hayden chiming in. being like, for the gore list, yeah, no, Joel at CanCon for the gores, yeah, I feel that. But so just quickly, I kind of want to get your opinion on a couple of things just while I have you, if that's okay. Because I think that there's some like we've seen obviously some cool shit that's about to drop with the Storm Vaults and everything with Forbidden Power. So we've seen. I take it because you're pretty much you're a bit like me. I assume you check the Warhammer community page, if not daily, every second day. Would that be fair?
When I wake up in the morning, I jump onto wrestling sites to see what rumors are happening in the world of WWE and AWE,
Oh, yep.
AWF.
Okay, yep,
I'm a
good.
big
Good.
wrestling guy.
Different show, but definitely a conversation that I'd love to have.
And then
Yep.
and then Warhammers, like what's happened in the overseas, and more importantly, what's coming up in the community. And uh, sometimes I get little fuzzy moments like this week when I saw the Halfling Hot Pot returning.
Oh, yeah, right.
The,
Halflings, just, goddamn, if you want to set Blood Bowl to hard mode, you play Halflings.
yeah,
They're,
that's another story, but yeah.
Yeah, but what we saw over the last couple of days is they're starting to just drip feed us, which I love. I love a good drip feeding because it makes people panic. I remember, and I'm not going to name names, but when Age of Sigmar 2.0 was coming out, and they drip fed us the idea of command points and command abilities and how things were changing, that there were a bunch of people running around screaming that the sky was falling. And it was like, they've ruined everything. The game's fucked. It's going to be like 40k. We should all burn our Dark Elf armies while listening to some intense hardcore metal. Fun fact for those of you who were around during the end times. But the thing that I was like, well, let's kind of see. Let's kind of see it all and play it a little bit before we make judgments on the game. And I mean, I love drama. I'm a messy bitch, but sometimes you got to think about it. Now, I've kind of liked that they've drip fed us a little bit from this as well. And the big one being the penumbral engines, which we don't know if they will be for every army. They're a terrain piece that every army can take. I don't know if they're going to be match play or not. Have you had a look at this, Anthony?
I have.
Yeah.
And fun fact from the coach, I avoid all of the Warhammer community articles that leak rules.
Okay. Yeah.
Mostly when it comes to a battle tome,
Yeah.
for the reasons that they give you the little snippets, but it's not in context. Like I remember when people started seeing the Loon boss on Mangler Squig and the ability to fight another day, so he fights and then jumps out of combat. People lost their minds, like, this is broken, this is crazy. But no one's running it because he has to be your general, and Scragrar is such a great general that, and you start seeing these things like, well, it's not, you can do it, but it's probably not always the most viable option. So I take it all with a grain of salt.
Definitely.
But yes, I absolutely have seen the new terrain piece. I've heard rumors of what it looks like in match play, but it is a rumor.
And that's the thing. But the thing that I dig is I love all of the new terrain that's coming out. And including the penumbral engine, including all of it. I think that, like, I've seen a few people who are like, oh yeah, this, my one worry with the game at the moment is rules bloat just a little bit. I think that there are a lot of people there are a lot of people rather, armies that are starting to have just tons of rules that interrupt the game flow. So I worry a little bit about that, but it feels like from what they've said that a lot of the terrain and a lot of the abilities that we're going to start seeing are quite well streamlined in with the game, which I think is really good. And for those who haven't seen it, and just like the coach says, he is 100% right, all with a grain of salt because we don't know how it works. But the if a penumbral engine is in your list, it's a terrain piece. It's got one of two effects that you don't get to rely on because you roll for them at the start of the game. One effectively gives you reroll saves of one, so it's like Arcane Mystic Shield, and the other one gives you an extra command point, I believe. And then you roll a dice, and on a 5-up every turn, it changes, but it's also for all of them across the whole goddamn battlefield, which I think is great because it's not necessarily something you can rely on it makes it very entertaining, makes it very narrative, in my opinion. How did you feel? Again, we're not going to theorize, we're not going to go down the rabbit hole on it, but just if that's the way that they work and that's the end of the world, how did that make you feel?
Look, um, I remember 2 years ago or about 18 months ago when
Mm-hmm.
Firestorm very first come out,
Yep.
and the world lost their mind that all of these free cities were, broken as hell, and a lot of tournaments banned Fire based off fear.
Mm.
And when tournaments started letting them in 6 months later, they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's not
Yeah.
that bad. No, no Anvil Guard, no Living City is crushing a tournament.
Yeah.
Um,
It just
but it
makes
allows you to.
all it was doing was making those armies that didn't have them, like your Grand Alliance armies, have a little bit of something interesting. Like
Absolutely.
Gut Stompers, the destruction one, I think is so fucking fun. I just wish I had an army that could play it.
They're awesome. And Dad Hammer and I did a show about it some time
Mm,
ago, but they're fun. And then fast forward 12 months later, you had Malign Portents come out
mm,
and people freaking out about realm rules and, all of a sudden extra spells and command abilities. And tournaments are now including whether it's the core rules or malign sorcery.
mm,
Some of those realm abilities are a lot of fun,
mm.
and in a tournament, they're not as match breaking as people fear.
Yeah,
Um,
I've
so
definitely I find myself sitting in between the two. But I think the thing is that so everyone's having this argument about or not argument, but everyone's having a difference of opinion about malign sorcery, and I'm sure it's going to happen with Forbidden Power about whether you should or whether you shouldn't. I played it in an event early this year, the West Coast GT over here, where it was none of it. It was nothing, no malign sorcery. But it didn't even use terrain. We didn't even roll for terrain. And to be honest, it was actually a really fun tournament. It was really clean. The roll for sides didn't come down to picking which side just had the arcane terrain on it or the mystical terrain that you needed. It came down to planning like your lines of advance and things. And I actually really dug that. But then I also remember playing in CanCon in previous years and in Sydney GT where you had command abilities and realm spells and everything like that, and loving those too. So I don't think that there's a right or wrong. I just think that there's variety. And as
so
we were taught, variety is the spice of life.
well, I played at the Adepticon Championships,
Mm-hmm.
which is a 200 player event,
Mm.
and Alex, the TO, let all realm features happen.
Mm.
So at Sydney GT last year, I only let the rules from the core rulebook, so
Mm-hmm.
that one command ability, that
Yep.
one spell, and one feature.
Mm.
Alex said, "You have all 6 spells,
Yeah.
use them all," and I didn't have a bad game.
No.
So obviously a TO needs to guide and make sure that nothing crazy happens, like maybe the monster comes out of Gur. But
Mm.
I guess the point that I was going to try to make was every 12 months we've had these freak out moments, whether it's
Yeah.
Firestorm, Malign Sorcery, and now Forbidden Power. It's like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling, it's going to break. While I was at Adepticon, I had an opportunity to meet up with some of the GW heads,
Yep.
and one of my pieces of feedback that the community resonated with was that we don't want to go towards 40k where you have like 6 or 8 different
Mm.
books coming to an. I
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah.
flipping from the core rule book to my battle tome to my general's handbook to like
Malign sorcery to this for all of the different rules that I need to play one game.
absolutely. I need to go find a Sherpa just to carry all my books to my next tournament.
Yeah, or it's like if I don't have an updated iPhone, I'm not going to be able to hold all of the books because the storage is too low.
Yeah, or even like for some people like me who travel internationally, I don't have Wi-Fi at that spot. So I guess the point I wanted to make was I think we all need to accept Forbidden Power and whatever books come out in the future, try it. If it doesn't work, it's not very good, it's a poor
Yeah.
experience, let's move it back or scale it back. But I think what we've seen from previous books is that we say no to it before we even try it.
And that 100%, that's all that I would recommend. I'm like, don't be scared of change. Give it an opportunity. If you don't like it, and that's where, as a TO, you can go, you know what? I'm going to strip it back. Where this is probably going to sound fucking dumb, and I'm so sorry to everybody who is listening or in the Twitch chat or anywhere. I'm a big fan. I like running as basic as that is. I just like it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm a simple person. There's not a lot of thoughts in my brain. So putting one foot in front of the other for a long period of time is something that connects with me because it doesn't require a lot of brain power to do it. I get headaches when I try to play water lilies, but I like it. And then every now and then someone was like, "Have you tried nude running?" And I was like, no. That sounds like a very unpleasant experience. Bits flapping, people looking. I'm not." And they're like, no, it just means that you don't have like your watch telling you how fast you're running or your headphones in. You just run. And I was like, oh, okay. Doesn't sound like it, but I tried it, right? I enjoyed it. I was like, actually, it's really fun to just kind of get back to the basics. I enjoyed the scenery more. I kind of paid more attention to where I was and where I was going. Afterwards, I was like, I'm going to go back to my music because I much prefer listening to a bit of the Angels while I run. But it was a really cool experience. And I would say that's my kind of like side tangent into this is that you should try those things. You should try everything, give it a shot. Sometimes play a game where you strip it all right back to the basics because you'll learn some stuff and then add everything in. I definitely think that there's nothing wrong with either way, and there's nothing wrong with having a preference. Where the problem is how many people are saying how people should play the game. Like, I see a lot of arguments about malign sorcery, and I'd love to get your opinion on this as a TO of one of Australia's largest events, Anthony. There's a lot of people saying, you should do this, we shouldn't use that, this makes the game unbalanced. And I'm like, well, no, I think people should get to choose, right? And enjoy however they want to go. And if you don't like a tournament, just go and enjoy it. So, Anthony, what's kind of your side on that thing?
Yeah, look, as a TO, I think about my audience for every decision that I make.
Yep.
So I think about my end goal. So if I was running an event for newer players, let's say I'm in a community. Last year, at one of my events, I had a lot of new blood coming in from AOS 2, a lot of first timers. And for me to throw the books at them, like, you're going to have random scenarios, so you're not going to know.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to add this rule. I'm going to roll up a realm feature on the day. A new player gets overwhelmed. They're like, holy shit, I can't handle this. This is a bad experience and I don't want to come back. So when you run an event for a new community, you're thinking about, how do I build that skill and that knowledge? Maybe you drip feed it to them. Or what I did was I created a one-page cheat sheet which had all of the rules. And funnily enough, I think Bobo used my cheat sheet last year as well.
I believe they did, yes.
And I was literally like, guys, this is what we're going to be doing, and here are the rules. So you're not flipping between books, and this game is already challenging enough to get through 5 full rounds, and this extra complexity just makes it tough. So as a TO, I need to give you more time on the table. I need to find ways. I tell you what missions are happening at the start, or I'm creating cheat sheets.
Yeah.
So if I guess to answer your question, I'm thinking about my audience, and I'm thinking about the decision that I'm trying to create, and the outcome I'm trying to create. So last year I tried the terrain rules. So I allowed people to use certain terrain rules for the Citadel Woods, for the Madrath Throne,
realm gates and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, not realm gates. There was like I hand selected some things.
The ones that could and couldn't be used.
Yeah. Cool. So we tried. I'm not going to do that this year, but I'm trying different things. And I think ultimately you just need to vote with your wallet. If this 100%. If this event's not for you, don't go. Don't whinge and complain that someone's using the realm of Gur and that you've got to bring a monster. If you don't like it, don't go.
Or if you're like, oh, I don't know if I'll like it, go with an open mind. And if you get to the end and you're like, I didn't like it, that doesn't give you excuse to complain. That just gives you a position to be like, in the future, I don't think I will go to events that are like that. Or if I'm playing a game with a mate, I'll be like, hey, I don't like playing these rules.
Well, I remember playing. So my good friend Deke, who's the king of death,
and
he's
just
amazing.
A fucking hobby legend as well.
He's a hobby legend. Deke is amazing.
Yeah.
And my very first malign portents. So you guys might or might not remember, there was that malign portents book that happened.
Oh, I love
around,
that book.
It was a great book, but it was the
Yeah.
first time that quote unquote command points were brought into our game.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being so negative about it. Deke was like, "Oh, let's just give it a try, give it a try." And I'm
Mm.
like, "Fucking command points, that's fucking 40k. I don't want to play. I don't want to play
Yeah,
command
yeah,
points."
right.
And I tried it, and look, it was challenging because I had to think a little bit differently,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a good experience. I tried it again, and here we are now using command points. And that first experience helped me build that muscle. So it was uncomfortable at first. It was a different way of playing. Um, Now I look back and I wonder how we played any differently because it just seems normal.
But and you know what the thing is though, right? We're not playing a set in stone game. We are not playing solitaire. We're not playing something that hasn't changed in a million years. We're playing a living game. It evolves, it changes. Because let's be honest, otherwise it's going to get boring. We're going to hate what we're doing. We're going to see the same armies do the same things, and the game's just going to play out. If the rules writers and developers don't change shit, we will not enjoy our experience. All those war dollies that I've spent so much money on, all this shit that I'm building now, I'm going to end up not enjoying in 5 months' time. I want longevity. Now, that doesn't mean that every decision is going to resonate with me, but what it does mean is that every decision is changing stuff for me, so I get a new experience. And I personally, my biggest gripe with it, I think it is fair to give feedback and say like, look, I'm struggling because Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven are dominating the top tables and it's hard to get a look in otherwise. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you say the game's fucked. You just say, I can't wait for something to change it. And I think that that's where, yeah.
Show my age here,
Yeah.
and I've been playing Warhammer since like third, fourth edition. So I got into it as a
Wait,
kid.
what was your starter box? What was your starter box? And in the chat, what was your starter box? Like, what was the two faction starter box when you started playing any type of Games Workshop game?
I mean, the big one when I really got into it was the Bretonnia versus Lizardmen.
Yep.
And then obviously Empire come out with Orcs the year after the edition after
Yep.
that. Now I'm getting fuzzy. Maybe it was then the Grots and I can't remember.
There was there was I think I was around the same time. I remember playing my brother with the Lizardmen versus Bretonnia. Lizardmen versus Bretonnia box. We didn't know the rules. We made it up. We had a great fucking time. And then learning the rules, and I'm pretty sure the next box was Empire versus Orcs. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the one after that.
Yeah.
Sick.
Dwarves versus Goblins?
Grots, maybe, and then it was the High Elves versus Rats.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was, back when I very first started, the books came out like the Dark Elf book that was really broken. I think it was around fifth edition.
Yep.
It took 2 years to get updated. so like you had to put up with this broken Dark Elf combos for 2 years. There was no FAQs. There was no community updates. It was if this is the way you play. And when I reflect on my hobby, I dabbled in 40k. I played Mordheim. I played Necromunda. I played Blood Bowl. I played. I've got so many of the specialist games now, like Battlefleet Gothic. I played all those games, and I think when I think about that, I don't do that anymore. And the reason is because the rate of change in Age of Sigmar is happening so frequently that the game is always fresh. While back in the day in fantasy, the game wasn't fresh.
Yeah.
And the way I found variety was by playing Mordheim, playing Necromunda, playing all these other games that I now no longer have time because I'm now learning ways to beat Feck.
Yeah.
I'm now learning ways to beat Skaven. I'm now playing Slaanesh, and I want to learn how to play against them. So life, and that is change. And I think everyone just needs to embrace change and just recognize that if you're not growing, you're dying. Just accept it and have fun. Enjoy it.
And look, to be honest, like I think one of the things I talk about in my other life with my other job, that's right, I exist outside of the hobby, like a tiny percent, just a really small percent, is where the goalposts are. We're always talking about where the goalposts have been set. And previously, I remember playing Warhammer Fantasy, and the goalposts were set and then stayed there for about 5 years. And I remember that. I remember playing War Dollies back in the day, and looking at how many different armies were just fucking all of my shit up, right? Like I was getting absolutely rolled, and then Chaos came out, and Chaos had the for those of you who played back in the day. they had their army book was busted. They were the first time that they'd experimented with like table wide abilities. It fucked up everything. It was really hard. Um, and yeah, it rolled everyone, and it was a long time before they fixed it up. So yeah, you played multiple games to keep up with it. Whereas now they've fixed that, and all of a sudden things are so much better, and I just love it. I'm a big fan. Sorry, in the chat, people chiming in with their first set. Orcs versus High Elves. Was that Orcs versus High Elves or Skaven versus High Elves? Night Scribe, how far back are we going? Did Orcs versus High Elves happen a while back? Um, Elves and Goblins, 4th ed, 40k Orcs and Marines. Yep. Bretts versus Lizardmen, Empire versus Orcs, Bretts and Lizardmen. Didn't start with Starter, but it was the old school Dryads. Yeah, Lord of the Rings. I know a lot of people started with Lord of the Rings before they got into it. Nutchip was 40k before hitting Fantasy. So what 40k was your starter box? Was it Dark Eldar Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines? Like there was always Space Marines, but what were they fighting? 3 Wood Elf books over 20 years. Wood Elves. Yeah, Wood Elves featuring pretty heavily.
Wood elves were pretty popular back in the day. I knew a lot of Wood Elf players. I do have a lot of love for the quote unquote wanderers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I always thought about how do I bring like Orion into a Sylvaneth list, and how do I recreate Orion as epic as Durthu? I don't know, but yeah, like the game's changing. Embrace it, have fun. It is a game.
Yeah.
I think we need to remember that it's a game. It's fun. We go and we catch up with mates. We have beers. We have laughs. Um, what GW does is outside of our control. What I can control is having fun with my opponent and enjoying the ride.
And like at tournaments, and I'm as guilty as this as anyone. So I'm not saying that I have the answer, but regularly I catch myself getting a bit too caught up in the game, right? And I take a little moment, I take a breath, and remind myself that I am pushing plastic war dollies around the table covered in paint and creating stories and competitive games based on it. And all of a sudden, that kind of brings it back into focus for me. And I'm like, yes, this can be a competition. I can want to win. I can enjoy myself. But let's remember that I got into this hobby for fun. And I think that a lot of people sometimes forget that and get caught up in the competitive aspects of it. We're not playing poker. There's not money on the line. Yes, in the future, I'm going to make Rob make a bet with me over who wins has to force the other person to get a tattoo. He agreed to it about 3 shows ago. Go back and check. Start pressuring Rob to go do a tattoo bet with me on Twitter. But I think that the thing is that people are kind of worried about it. Sorry, Night Scribe saying that he doesn't know what starter set for 40k was, but he had Chaos Space Marines, and I spray painted them with my dad's rattle can, and they never lost their stickiness. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I spray painted my first models with a gloss spray paint as well, and it was a terrible mistake. Your first models?
I never actually undercoated or primed for, like, when I look at my Empire army from back in the day, I reckon it took me a good 10 years or at least 5 years to invest in a transport case. I would just get like packing peanuts and a toolbox and I'd transport them. God help me. But most of my models are easy to strip now because I never primed them.
You're a monster. You're a fucking monster.
Back in the day, like you didn't even, back in the day, like the only washes we really had access to was like chestnut ink. And I never watered them down because I never knew about that. There was no such thing as green stuffing. There was no Duncan with his YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Like, I was an animal back in the day. Like, I can't believe that I hobbied the way I hobbied, but that's all you knew.
Yep, that's true. We lived a very different life.
Painful.
But look, I think the thing and the reason I really wanted to have this conversation is, as a TO, you run a handful of the biggest events in Australia, and some of the most notable in Sydney. People travel for them. If you are overseas and planning on a trip to Australia in the near future, I would recommend getting along to one of the coaches' events. And so I kind of like that a big thing for you is variety and inclusivity and experimentation. So with that said, I know that you have a few events coming up. Tell me about them. Let's talk.
I'm going to talk about other people's events first.
Okay, yep, let's do that.
So So coming up in June, there are a couple of really cool events. One in Sydney called Sydney Slaughter, which is a complete narrative event, but it's match play. They're using 5 scenarios from the different battle tomes. So, in every battle tome, there's at least like
Comes
one
out with it,
thematic
yeah.
or narrative battle plan. So Chris Welfare from Mortally Wounded and James Mabry, they put together that pack. And I think it's going to be a load of fun, very different. On the same weekend, there's BadgerCon, which is happening in Victoria. Those guys, the Measured Gaming Boys, are super competitive but lovely guys, and they love nothing more than having beer and just having a wild time. So it's like a Bobo light.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, the comparison that I would draw there is that one of those events, so Sydney Slaughter, is a narrative competitive event in a place where you can drink, whereas BadgerCon is a place where you can drink that also hosts a competitive event.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. And they're both great experiences. There's heaps of events happening in Australia, so I highly Number one, it happens, I guess, our National Day in January. Events, but I've recently this week just launched Sydney GT, which is a 2-day event happening in October. Game. So you get to bring more of your war dollies, more big monsters, more big heroes.
So we're talking 5,000 point games. We're 2,500 points aside, 5,000 point games, and that's really exciting. It's so much more flexible. It pops it up to the next bracket for heroes and behemoths and stuff like that.
Well, it means you're running like you can run Nagash and not just fill your battle line with 3 units of direwolves. Like you now can actually build a proper Nagash army. I can build out that dragon army or whatever that is. Like I got a friend who plays Flesh Eater Courts. His name's Brad Baker, and he wants to run Ghoul Patrol at 120 ghouls.
Jesus Christ!
And he can do that in 2,000 points, but he's limited to what he can do. But all of a sudden, characters, maybe even a monster,
and then he can
changes the dynamic.
And then he can summon more ghouls on top of the ghouls.
I don't think he wants to paint any more ghouls. I think 120 is what he's got.
Yeah, that does. You get to a point of diminishing return with ghouls. Now, you mentioned Sydney Slaughter before. So Sydney Slaughter 2019, it's on the 8th and 9th of June. So I'm assuming if you are planning on being there, you're already probably somewhere in the area. You might be traveling over or whatnot. Now, I'm pretty sure ticket sales have closed for that. But I also know that Chris Welfare, who is the TO of that event, is a real softie. He's just had a kid. Well, obviously he didn't physically have the kid. Not in the same way that I'm carrying all of our hobby babies as a stream. I'm like a frog. You know when a frog gives birth to tons of tadpoles? That's what I am. I'm the Honest Wargamer's frog mother. But I also know that he's had a kid, so he may be a little bit of a softie right now. If you haven't signed up and want it, just message him and really beg and just be like, but Dan from the Honest Wargamer said that you'd let me in. And I have a feeling that you'll get on his good side and he'll let you in. Because it is a fun event where you've got custom scenarios going on, custom from the things that you wouldn't play. I guarantee you've probably never played the scenarios from it prior. So if you are going to be around, hit him up, Mortally Wounded, have a look. Sydney GT. Now, people can't get tickets to the Sydney GT yet, can they?
They can buy tickets on Thursday. There's a pre-sale for people who attended last year. So last year was 74 players.
And you sold out. Pretty good. You sold out at 60, or am I correct? Or 70?
I got capped by the venue, and then I kept. So it was at a convention, and I just kept pushing other game systems out and stealing more tables. So I stole 74 players total, and they had said no more. You can't have any more because I think I kicked Ninth Age out to a little basement somewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you just like guys, you can't take the Ninth Age basement.
Yeah, basically you just kept expanding until they said no.
Yeah.
Dad Hammer saying that he keeps making a mistake by having kids near the Sydney GT. However, let's be honest, his kid, like Little Orion, best fucking name for a kid. If you are in the chat, snaps for Dad Hammer for having one of the most badass named kid around. Demcast Ricky saying, have you not figured out that sex equals kids yet? No, it's not that I haven't figured it out. It's that I just love everybody who wants to be a part of the hobby with us. And so I just keep accepting the babies. Every 9 months.
I imagine your elevator is actually a spawning pool.
That's pretty much it.
How
Like
I'm thinking.
I'm knee deep in filth. Actually, I'm never going to show you, and I'm only probably going to admit this once. And because you brought it up, I will mention it. Like, I look halfway decent from the top down because I know that's what the camera captures. From the bottom down, I am either wearing nothing or very, very unfashionable, comfortable pants. Because if the stream doesn't capture it, I'm not bothering on wearing anything from the nice area down. And if you're listening to this back, you're not having a look at it. So from the pants down, I'm very comfortable. I could give birth in these. And sorry, yes, I just want to respond to a comment from a little while back in the chat. Cool Bunny, Veronica asking whether about some of you will have missed this, and I'm very sorry that I was talking about running naked, a nude running thing. I wasn't naked. It was like no technology running. Did I realize that before or after? I was concerned, and so I Googled it beforehand because I didn't want to turn up in just a towel and then try to do 15 Ks in a towel. That would have been weird. But yeah, so for Sydney GT, there's a pre-release which is only available to people that already have played in Sydney GT, and then as of Thursday it goes live.
On Thursday it goes live, but let's be honest, I am a salesperson at heart.
Mm-hmm.
I train salespeople and marketers.
Yep.
But if you're traveling from outside of Sydney and you're listening to this,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to attend, slide in my DMs, tweet me on Twitter or something, and I'll open up the side door for the Honest Wargamer people.
Okay, yeah. So if people want to sneak in through the side door, they just rock up and be like, "Hey, I'm on the list," and you'll be like, "Yeah, okay, I can help you out."
No, they can pay me first. I'm not a charity.
It's War Dollies. If you've got money for War Dollies, you've got money for events.
I feel like a late night Tony Robbins ad.
Yeah.
Wait, there's more, and like there's stakes, and like slide in the next hour. I'm gonna do this for you.
Yeah.
And,
so basically, if anyone if anyone comes in and gets involved in the next couple of hours for the Sydney GT, by the end of the day, you will personally give each of them a cuddle and a Coke at the start of the game.
Give them a cuddle and Coke.
Yeah, definitely.
There's also that's fine. Like we're gonna have hot lunches included. There'll be beers. There's going to be a late night probably trivia or there's a whole range. I've got the whole venue, so we're going to have a lot of fun. And 2,500 points is against something different. Some people may not feel comfortable with that, and that's okay. But I know a lot of people out in the community have had their models for a while, and they want to try some of those bigger battalions. They want to bring on more officers, and I think creating events like 2,500 are equally as important as running 1,000 points or doubles or triumph and treachery, and pick your poison, whatever works for you.
Also, there's a bunch of armies out there that have those massive battalions, right? That only operate once they're like 2,100 or 2,400 points. So like the army-wide battalions that has like one of every unit or something, and you can't get them unless you go up to 2,500. Oh, Joel. 400 bits for Aussie Wargaming, thank you. We're actually in the midst of upgrading a lot of the Honest Wargamer tech at the moment after BOBO. So we're upgrading cameras and sound equipment and everything, both here and over in the UK. So thank you. Those 400 bits are going to be poured immediately into upgrading the shit that we have. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Bless. Massive bless up and anyone who's a subscriber, whether you're on Twitch or Patreon or anything like that. Or everything that goes into the coffers of the Honest Wargamer goes back out in the stuff that we use to produce content. So we really appreciate it, because obviously, like, if we're receiving anything in that way, it means because you like what we do and you want to see a little bit more of it. So thank you very much. Nice.
As a content creator, we are not making millions of dollars.
No.
Tournament organizers are not making millions and millions of dollars. Like, everything goes back in. So
that's it. I mean, like, TOs are pretty lucky if like their accommodation and food is covered for the tournament that they're running, right? Like, it's not like you walk out of there being like, look at all of the fucking money that I made.
Yeah, it's definitely not. You're not getting in there for profit, but again, as a TO content creator, everything like this is
Yeah.
bits and getting this message out. And thanks.
It's all there. But yeah, man. And so Sydney GT, what are the dates for that? Because there might be some people listening from over this side of the pond who are potentially planning a trip to Australia and need to buy an extra bag to take their army. So when would that be? What should they take with them on their Australian summer trip? Winter trip. Fuck.
No, it's like spring.
Oh yeah, that's true actually by the time it gets around to there. Yeah, when is it? Give us some dates. Some sweet hot dates.
Sydney GT is happening on the 12th and 13th of October. So winter has well and truly ended. We're in Sydney, so we're in the heart, not our capital, fun fact, that's Canberra. Yep. But we're putting on 2 days. We're going to have, like I said, there's going to be a trivia, there's food included in your ticket. Outside of Sydney and you want some help, whether it's accommodation, things to do, where to drop your wife or your partner as you play with your war dollies to guide you. And this is not Australia puts on some amazing events, and we're generally very supportive. So
the other thing I would say is that Australians, I don't know, when I was there and people would travel for events, we're very supportive of people coming to us because we know how much effort that takes. So if you go to Australia and you need help finding a place to stay, knowing where to land, where to go, things like that, there's a Facebook group which is Age of Sigmar Sydney Australia and Age of Sigmar Australia. Just be like, I'm coming from wherever, and you will have 100 people commenting, trying to help you out. So I wouldn't worry, because there's a lot of love for War Dolly players who make the long trip to Down Under. We know that it was probably a 16 to 24 hour trip to get there, or if you're Rob and Nathan and flying on the cheapest you can get, a 42-hour trip to get from London to Australia. So we'll try to make you feel welcome and comfortable, and we'll try to get you rolling some dice as soon as possible.
I did Blood and Glory in 2017, Adepticon this year. I know what it's like to travel.
Yep.
And I know people are already booking their tickets for CanCon. So I know some of the Rage of Sigmar guys have already bought tickets for their flight well before tickets for the actual event is on sale. So whatever event is, we're all pretty helpful. So
it's look, and it's a big one. It's a fun one, and it's fucking legendary. I would 100% recommend it. And the other thing is Australia's big, so Australians will help you. We're not the convicts that you think we are. We'll help you out. We'll make things easier. Yeah, Truthiness horrified at the concept of 42-hour travel time. Rob and Nathan did that together, and then got off the plane into my Mini Cooper and drove 3 hours or 2 and a bit hours to Canberra for CanCon. So just if you watched the CanCon coverage earlier this year, appreciate the physical and mental state that those two gentlemen were in, because they presented really well.
Back in the 1960s, my nana came to Australia from Malta in a boat. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that was the same kind of time. Hey, be quiet. Muted myself with my dog.
No, that's all right. This is a show embraces dogs. I mean, there's a jet image that you can add to the chat, which it can be added to the chat anywhere in Twitch at the moment, which is fucking lovely.
So the reason why my dog's barking is he's actually become very opinionated to music. So when I go out to work, I normally leave like music on television, and he he's got a rule. Like he doesn't like Britney Spears. There was like Ice Baby he didn't like, and like he'll bark at it. Like, I don't like this song. Change it. So something crap must be on.
Look, I gotta say, I'm sorry. I'm gonna throw it out there. I don't want to chuck shade at your dog, but I feel like your dog's got poor taste, because Britney Spears and Ice Baby is pretty much my like 80% of my playlist. So
I did have a Britney Spears versus Tay-Tay battle between Chuck Moore and Adepticon, where I wore a Britney Spears classic shirt.
Yep.
So I'm teaching him. He doesn't bark enough to. He needs to bark at Madonna, not at Britney.
Okay,
so I'm trying to teach him how to bark at the Hag Queen herself.
So from now on, anyone out there, if you use a hag queen, if you play against a hag queens are now Madonna, no matter what happens. But wait, which model is then Britney? If hag queens are Madonna, Britney is
Is
uh,
there any? I don't.
well,
I don't
maybe
know. Like
maybe
she's pretty
Marathi.
hospitalized and
Marathi,
no.
because she goes from being like, oh damn, to like, sweet Betty Dingus, what the fuck happened to you? So I feel like that would work.
I mean, she's feel like she's gone through a lot of trauma and some like
Mm-hmm.
very messed up stuff in her
Mm.
life. So maybe she has been like digested by Slanesh and comes out
Mm-hmm.
a bit bizarre. I don't know.
Or Marathi is Beyonce. Go with me, Twitch chat. Marathi is Beyonce because she started out in Destiny's Child. She started out as this little, beautiful, talented songstress, and then just fucking shit mixed the other two girls and became this gigantic fuck off queen that dominates everything. So potentially Marathi is Beyonce and the hag queen is Madonna. Yeah.
And I want to say Alariel is Brittany. I
Yeah,
think
no, yep.
you know,
Yeah, Alariel's
like
Brittany. Yeah.
yeah, and I can see Dimensional Cascade is also no Knight in Cantor. She's not a Knight in Cantor. I mean,
No, she's not quite a knight in
I'm with
Cantor.
Dimensional. This discussion we've had has gone super bizarre from children's cartoons
Mm-hmm.
to Warhammer editions to now Britney and
Look,
Madonna
I
and
would say that anyone that tunes into this show, the Honest Wargamer shows helmed by Rollball Nathan, they have some sidetracks, but they tend to be sidetracks based on War Dollies. This is not that show. This show loves its sidetracks so far deep into the side of the track that we end up talking about female pop stars. And you know what? I'm fun with it. Fine with it. I'm fun with it. Britney went fucking crazy and shaved her head, which is why she can't be Marathi. She can't be Marathi because Marathi has a head made of snakes. All right. So I feel like it's Beyonce. I'm pretty sure that
yeah,
Beyonce is
yeah,
Marathi, Hag Queen's a Madonna.
yeah, I'm happy with Queen Bee being Marathi.
And see, I like Britney as Alariel because she's relying on her backup dancers, which are obviously all of the dryads that she summons. It's like Mariah Carey. Actually, no, maybe Mariah Carey is better Alariel because she summons all those backup dancers to make her look like she's doing a lot when she's actually just standing around doing sweet fuck off nothing while they do all of the work. Um, Dimensional Cascade, I'd love your opinion. Brittany was messed up by Slanesh. That's at Nightscrove raised a good point, which is Brittany was probably fucked up by Slanesh. Now look, we should probably start wrapping this up because I have run out of whiskey. That, as those of you may have noticed before, that is the end of the bottle. Dad Hammer saying, "What's the most useless female character in the game?" Because we then have Taylor Swift. You shut your mouth. I'm a big fan of T Swizzle, especially in like Shake It Off. Like that song is just, if you're having a bad game at an event, just tell your opponent you need 5 minutes, step away from the table, put on some headphones, listen to Shake It Off, close your eyes and dance. I swear to God, you'll come back to the table a new person. Night Scrub, stoked. Yep, good.
Speaking of music, if you are having a crap day, or maybe you're trying to pump yourself up for an event, like do you have a song that you'd go to?
100% every single time.
What is it?
Get on up when you're down by 5.
Okay.
Every single time. Now, I don't know if everyone remembers 5, but it was like,
I mean,
get on up
it's not
when
my
you're
favorite
down. Yeah.
Five song.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean, 5 had some bangers, but the problem is, get on up when you're down. Like that for me is inspiring. It makes me feel light and buoyant. I'm like a human cloud, right? A lot of their other songs make me feel like I need to be making love to someone. And at a War Dolly convention, I'm looking at a whole lot of bearded dwarves, both on the table and potentially the people I'm playing against. Not the target of my affections usually. I mean, I love my bearded dwarves, but I love how they smash elves and kill dryads. So I think that it sits in a better place for me to listen to something buoyant rather than something that makes me feel like I should be having a special intimate moment. Do you have a particular song that you lean into?
uh, I love
Mm-hmm.
because it's cheesy as hell, but I also because I love the Karate Kid, and again I told you
Yep.
I run a
Yep.
dojo. is that the song from the Karate Kid? Is it Joe Espatio? I think it's
Oh,
called. Called
yep,
"You're the Best."
yep.
Yeah, you're the
It's
best
around,
around.
never, never gonna keep it down. Yep, no,
Yeah,
good,
love those 80 montage
good.
songs.
In the chat,
Uh,
we've got some people signing off as well. Dimensional Cascade, Baby Shark for Deepkin, great. Just great. And the other thing that's great is I wouldn't listen to that in headphones. I'd play it out loud and infuriate your opponent because they can't get it out of their head for the rest of the night. Baby Shark is not only a great one for you, but it messes with your opponent. Ocean Man for Deepkin from Night Scribe. Yep, good, good. Veronica, Cool Bunny 3. Hers is Wait and Bleed by Slipknot, which is even more
yes,
horrifying given
cool
that
bunny.
she plays Daughters of Cain. Uh,
Oh, that's
so
good.
yeah, that's not only is it a good song, it's a really good combo with the Army, Dad Hammer. I Came to Play. Yes. I mean, look, Welcome to the Jungle is a classic. Gore Lord, Blood for the Blood God by Debauchery. I'm just going to float it with you that I'm pretty confident you play Blades of Corn. I think a good generic one is The Touch from the Transformers
Oh,
80s movie soundtrack. Like that one just that it doesn't matter what army you play, like it's gonna pick you up and just keep you going. So like I really dig it. You used to play that. Gorlord saying that he used to play it off of his iPhone during deployment, which I think is just can we please try and make War Dollies a little bit more cinematic? Just have a little bit
I
of backing
always
track.
I mentioned I'm a massive wrestling fan. I
Mm-hmm.
always had this idea that I would love maybe at the Masters,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like have like a Titantron entrance, like everyone
Oh
enters the
yes.
arena with a song and
Mm-hmm.
they go to their table with that, maybe even some fireworks or some pyro or some
Yeah.
stage shenanigans. But I would love, and Elf Bro and I were talking some time ago about how we can incorporate more wrestling, whether it's maybe like
Yeah.
calling out grudges as like wrestling promos or
Mm.
I don't know. I feel like it's some really good integration between professional wrestling and war dollies.
Yeah, a Dimensional Cascade is saying that he can't think of a good one for Gits. What would you have? See, I'm thinking immediately. I'm like, Welcome to the Jungle, because it's all like we got fun and games and shit like that, and I'm like, that's pretty much what the Gits are about, right? Like weird shit happening, and you never really know what's going to be played. So I throw that way. Do you have a good one for Gits?
Oh, I don't know because right now I'm obsessed with Amon Amarth.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been
Yeah.
listening to their new album Berserker. Hey!
Obviously, a little bit of Britney just slipped onto the TV.
Dogs are on Berserk as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like maybe something from Baby Metal, some weird
yeah,
grot music that like
yeah. Like,
only us weirdos can kind of like.
okay, I'm gonna float another idea your way. All right, what do you think about this, Anthony? Something from the Chipmunks. High pitched,
Chipmunk.
squeaky, annoying as fuck voices. I could see that for Grots.
Maybe.
Maybe. I see.
I don't know.
Because that's not
I have to
exactly
think.
pumping the gits up, but it's emotionally scarring your opponent, which I feel like would be a good way to do it. Um,
Like I'm looking at my current playlist. And it's basically Marilyn Manson, Baby Metal, Papa Roach,
mm-hmm.
Ramstein, and Amon Amarth. So
Ramstein would be
I'm
good. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
Little
I
Hearts or
feel
something. I don't know. I don't know.
Malky is
So
saying something by the Pixies for the Gits. I get what you're saying, but I also see your problem is you're struggling to pick a specific song, and it's like the Pixies, their vibe fits, but the songs, it's hard to pick a particular song. So if you just yell at your opponent, the Pixies, and throw albums at them, I feel like that might work, but you need to work a song into it. Um,
So
what?
I just decided to put in. So we know that the Honest Wargamer always talks about Grot stabbing people in the
Yep.
knees.
Yep.
So I just typed in stab in my Google Music Play,
Yep.
and some songs that are coming up is like Insane Clown Posse, I Stab People.
Yep.
The American Rejects have Stab My Back. I'm seeing 6 Feet Under Stab. So there's a
Yeah,
lot of stabbing
there's a
songs.
lot of stabbing, and I'm sorry to say that none of them are correct because Gorelord has it right. He has in fact found the song for the Gits to
Oh, what is
play.
it?
Dancing in the Moonlight.
Well done.
Yeah, yeah. It's perfect. It's yeah. You've nailed it. You've nailed it. Gorelord. Snaps for Gorelord. Everybody, if you're at home, click your fingers, give him some snaps. He has nailed it. Dancing in the Moonlight is 100% the right thing. And also, I like that. Like I was talking about before, it messes with your opponent because it's yeah.
Can I throw a counter?
Okay, yes. Throw a counter. I fucking love a good counter.
A classic from I think it's the 70s. Is it Creedence Clearwater Revival?
Yep.
Bad Moon.
Oh, Bad Moon Rising is such a good song, and it's so intense as well. There's a bad.
I'll let the
Yep.
chat pick which
Okay,
which
yep.
song.
Chat. It's tough. It's between Dancing in the Moonlight and Creedence Clearwater Revival, Bad Moon Rising. It's toughy. I don't want to have to decide. I'm going to throw it to the chat from right now. I'm going to count up the answers in a minute's time and see who thinks what. I mean, Nemesis Darren saying the Smurfs theme, also not a bad one. Like a good Looney song, maybe just the Looney Tunes theme song. For Dad Hammer, Fuck You With an Anchor by Ailstorm for the Privateers. Yep, that seems about right. I like that. Someone had a good one for Flesh Eater Courts. I'm just going through. Yeah, it was Cool Bunny. Sorry, it's Veronica again. She's on fire at the moment. I fucking Hate You by Godsmack for Flesh Eater Courts. Yeah.
Oh, I do love Godsmack.
Yeah.
I actually caught their drumstick at a concert once. So,
No.
mad respect for Godsmack.
Yep. And their general thing fits both the playstyle and my emotional response for Flesh Eater Courts, which is good. Solid choice. Yeah. Gorelord is struggling to pick. Bad Moon Rising. It's literally in the name. Dancing in the Moonlight. Okay, so Ghoul's Night by Misfit. Yep. Okay, so you know what? We could talk about songs all day, and maybe that's what. Okay, so I'm gonna give everyone some homework. If you're listening right now, or you're watching back, or whatever, however you're doing it, by next week's show, I'm gonna write it down so I don't forget it. We're going to start by talking about allegiance songs, right? I'm writing it down, and that's going to be the top. That's going to be the start of the next song because this is too big a subject for us to deal with in the last few minutes of this episode. So that's next week. Next week we're talking about allegiance to songs, and come back then. Yeah, it feels like Bad Moon Rising won. I'm so sorry. I loved the emotional complexity of Dancing in the Moonlight. Like everybody's feeling warm and bright. Like it was good, but it seems like Bad Moon Rising was right there. It took you 2 hours. So we're gonna be talking allegiance songs next week. But for now, I think it is time to probably start to wrap it up and say thank you very much. We've passed the 2 hour mark. It's late at night. I'm out of whiskey. Anthony, you probably have to go back to work.
It's almost finish time for me at work.
Oh right, so, okay, great. So we'll just cruise through until you get the day off.
I don't know if I'm meant to add extra hours in lieu or I just basically go home early but
yeah, I mean, yeah, just
again, no LinkedIn profile,
no LinkedIn profile. No, fuck no. No one's looking at this. We just had a good time. Dimensional Cascade saying that he's going to add a speaker to his display board. He has a spectacular display board as well. And I've spoken about it before. Check him out, Ricky Fisher on Twitter. Look him up, Dimensional Cascade on Twitch as well. They do battle reports and they make some of the best goddamn battle mats that I have ever seen. If I get the chance, I'm coming back over to Australia later this year. I'll bring one to show everyone because they're really, really cool. But yeah, I'm on there. Yeah, making an old dwarf face sing songs on your display board. Let's add it. Let's add music. Let's add smells to display boards. You know, like decant something and just let it waft out. So as people are seeing your blood tithe, all they're smelling is smoked meat or something. With my dwarves, I'll just have a beer in the middle of it and a little fan that slowly wafts beer smell at you. Let's go 3D or 4D even with our display boards. I'm all about that. Just in 10 years tournaments. Malkia saying that in 10 years tournaments would look like science fairs. What smell?
Can I just share one story from Adepticon?
Oh, please.
One particular person, a Skaven player, I think it was like a Scryer display he had these two massive cylinders at the back because it was like this concoction of obviously of things that they inject in to create the
Mm.
storm fiend. But it was margarita. So I watched the guy. He was actually next to me on the table. So he
Mm.
actually filled it up with margarita mixed with alcohol. And then after the judges and everyone did their best display board voting, he actually poured margaritas for everyone. So
Amazing. That's great.
not amazing, but delicious. And I think goes back to your points around science fairs and
Mm.
3D. Let's provide jerky
Let's.
let's bribe ourselves to the next tournament victory.
Yep, I mean, like, hey, Flesh Eater Courts serving you up some rare steaks. Truthiness raising a very good point, though. Am I sure that I want a Nurgle display board with active smells? Which also Darren Nemesis jumped right on the back, being like, don't know if you want the smell of his display board. No, Cool Bunny saying that she changes up and she is a bit of a perfume connoisseur as well. Saying that she changes up the perfume she wears depending on the army she's playing. I don't want to know what perfume you wear for Daughters of Cain. Is it the smell of being wrenched out of the stomach of a bound god, or the smell of blood? Tough one, really tough one.
I'm curious, but also cautious
Yeah.
of like
It's
I'd like
scary.
to know, but I also don't.
Yeah, Dimensional
Like
Cascade. Sorry. I just read it and it's broken me. He said that Nurgle players can just forgo hygiene to give us an immersive experience. Ah, that's not okay. Yeah, just don't. Still bathe. Still bathe. Sorry, what were you saying about matching Daughters of Cain to perfume, Anthony?
no. I was just saying that I'm curious as much as cautious in that. Like I'd like to say I'd like to smell that, but then it also sounds a bit creepy. But it's this curious like
Yeah.
what does a perfume smell like for the free people?
Yeah.
Is it like Lynx Africa for Seraphon? Like what does his
While also
smell?
playing Toto's Africa. It squirts you in the face with Lynx Africa, which Lynx in Australia is, I think it's Axe body spray over here.
Yeah.
If you're in North America, it's Axe. And Africa is probably the most common, popular, would we say that?
I think when you're a prepubescent boy and you're growing up, and Africa is definitely that smell that we're told that.
It
I don't think I've claimed one with Africa
No,
body
not
spray.
even at
Uh,
all. Not even a little
uh,
bit.
but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that I can now believe that that Old Spice will let me do that.
Yeah, look,
I've learned my lessons from Link. I'm now applying them in Old.
you need to pick. You need to pick one that matches both you and your army. Uh, Truthiness raising a good point is curious about the legality of a perfume for the Legion of Blood / Soulblight army, and what I would say to that is that I've seen the movie Perfume, and it can be a beautiful moment as you create it. Can I just say that this is a chat that I don't think would happen anywhere else. So thank you everybody that is currently here, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, however you're watching in. Thank you for being a part of this conversation because it's obviously a really important one. Hypno Kraken. Yeah,
This is the stuff that people want to know. Like if
it
they
is.
want
It is.
high quality content, they go to they go to Rob's show and they go to like Warhammer
Yeah.
Weekly.
Yeah.
When they want to talk shit with the Aussies, then
That's
you
this.
come to
This is the place to be.
dispossess Dan and his circus of weirdos like the
Yeah,
coach.
look, man. I would say that I would always choose a circus of freaks over somebody who is genuinely good at what they do. I mean, look, we've got suggestions that I think I would be excited. So that a Gutbusters barbecue, 100% yes. I mean, I'm an Aussie. I love a barbecue at the worst of times. The worst thing was voting over here because we recently had an election in Australia, so I had to vote, and there was no sausage barbecue. We call it a democracy sausage in Australia. Greasy smells. There's just some good ones. I mean, Hypno Kraken has an amazing point, and he said that like if you used axe, you could put a lighter beside it for salamanders and shoot fire into the air on your display board. That's just hot.
There's a
Yeah.
Fire Slayer display board waiting to happen.
Yeah. I mean, or like, yeah, Fire Slayers would look good. Lizardmen, if they were the right color scheme and were salamander heavy, even potentially Legion of Asblar, even though they're a compendium army that doesn't have a really army book or exist anywhere, potentially they'd work. Dad Hammer, KO, you just need to work on your car the day before to not bathe because then you'll smell like oil. Really good point. Greasy smells. Okay, so Cool Bunny signing in saying that she wears Hedonist by Victoria Minya for Slanesh, which I think is very, it's not only a very classy choice, it sounds very appropriate and the names work. Um,
I
uh,
don't even know what these perfumes smell like, so I'm going to go to some random girls and
just
ask
go
them.
by the
And
name.
start sniffing them and saying, "Oh, what does this smell?"
What
And
is
like, I'm
this?
going to have like a
I would,
bingo card, Cool Bunny's perfumes, and go right. I've smelt that.
yeah, that's it. And then by the end of it, just be like, and just mark your way through them. Uh,
I'm pretty sure by like the second person, I'm probably going to be in jail for like some sexual harassment case that I'm going around sniffing weird, like there's some weirdo.
Yeah, and another good point. Dad Hammer's saying that for his privateers, he'll just smell like rum, which is, I think, pretty much bang on it. Your opinions? What would you do for Fire
Uh,
Slayers? For privateers, rather.
I actually don't know because I'm actually stuck on Deepkin, and the reason is that I could smell it, but I'm likely to forget it.
That's the
Um,
problem, right? Every time you think you've smelt Deepkin, you forget that you smelt Deepkin, and you're like, God damn it, why don't I ever remember what the beach smells like?
yeah,
Yeah.
or I keep getting surprised about the smell of the beach because it's always new.
Yeah, no, you know what? The
Um,
Deepkins smell like a whale fart. That's what I'm going to go with. Uh,
well,
because
but
it's not a clean ocean smell. It's kind of a dirty, regretful ocean smell. So I'm going to say whales fart is how they smell.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I've got a good
Uh,
question. Hypno Kraken asking what dispossessed smell like. And you know when someone has gotten drunk, like really drunk, 4 to 5 nights in a row, and it's specifically 4 to 5 or more nights in a row. Like they've made some bad life choices. They have a smell that is a combination of their hangover, the alcohol, and regret. That's the dispossessed smell. So if you want to know what dispossessed smell like, it's that perfect storm of physical and emotional turmoil that you only get after you have been hungover for 5 days straight but not learnt your lesson, and you just wake up and look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, why are you like this? That's the way that dispossessed smell. How would you say that gits smell, Anthony?
so I was thinking about what free people
Oh,
smell. So
free peoples. Yeah, right.
my
Yeah,
first love is free people. I
yeah.
imagine it smells like a combination of gunpowder and disappointment every time the Stormcast come in and save their ass.
Yep, yep. It's that smell of like we can do this, and then like like I'm glad I'm not dead, but also I'm really disappointed that we weren't able to do this by ourselves for a change.
And I think gits probably smell like a wet towel.
Git smell like a
Like they
wet
live in
towel.
yeah, like a dank. You go for a swim and like you dry yourself off, and then your washing isn't until next week, and like this damp, dirty, stanky towel, or maybe you forgot it in your gym
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
And it's like that stank, I reckon, and that's what it feels like. They come from
Actually,
like the dingy, dark caves. Like there's probably
yeah.
mold
Or
and
like when you do a load of washing and then forget it in the machine for like 4 or 5 days, but you're like, I could do it again, or I'll just hang it out and see if it's okay. And then you hang it out,
yeah.
and afterwards you go to use that towel or you put on those clothes, and you're like, these don't smell right. That's the smell of Gloomspite gets.
Literally what Dimensional Cascade said, like a
Yeah,
funky towel from the public gym. I wouldn't use a
yeah.
public gym's towel, but I imagine it stinks like
Yeah,
that.
that's about right. And he also said that dispossessed smell like someone who pooped themselves. Not at that level. They've still got control of their bodily functions, but they're in regret about how much effort controlling their bodily functions is requiring for them. Nemesis Darren says that for Sylvan, you could just wear a pine tree car air freshener around your neck, which I think is fucking spectacular. Can you imagine? Like, and that's the thing. The stories coming out of BOBO over the weekend excite me. So there was a Deepkin player who put on goggles every time it was high tide on the tail. There was Tuggy, who is a farmer and was playing Dispossessed, who had grown a carrot 9 inches for whenever his dwarves tunneled up. So he didn't need a 9-inch ruler, he just had a carrot that was the perfect length for it. And
wasn't there a Bretonian player, and every time he charged, he had like a little
yeah,
horn? I heard that on the Bobo
yeah,
stream.
I don't think it was just any horn. I'm pretty sure it was a bugle. Like I think he had an old school bugle for it. And at the start, when he would blow it, just his club mates knew what it meant and would be like, "Rah!" But by the end, it was like 200 people in the hall. Every time he charged, he would play the bugle. His opponent is presumably just like, play more music. And 200 people would be like, charge! Because everyone knew what it meant. So yeah, I'm all about that. So if you want to actually add smell, like smell-o-vision to your games, let's do it. Because everyone's talking about adding the realms. Let's add the scent of the realms to our
I'm
games.
inspired. I feel like I've got a few business ideas already. I'm going to set up potentially a store. So it looks like selling ethereal amulets are no longer viable. So
Yep.
maybe I'm going to move into like perfumes.
Yep.
And potentially maybe like tour guides into the realm, and like
Yeah, yeah.
take them through booking holidays, and like here's a smell of the different realms and the different armies.
Essence of Shaiish. This
I
smells
feel like
like.
this was a business call. I feel like
Yeah, yeah,
I've now
definitely.
profited from this, and I have new ideas. I'm going to ideate.
Definitely, yeah.
And
Oh, mate, this entire episode has been one big tax write-off because we've obviously come up with some kind of weird Mortal Realms tour agency, right?
I love the scratch and sniff in
Ah,
the
yeah,
chat.
just saw that.
That's just scratch and sniff, mate. I'm going to take these ideas and put them on my visual management board. I'm going to start putting like an agile Scrum plan together. I'm going to start moving them through the ideation process, mate. I'm going to get rich. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Fun fact: Cool Bunny, I know, has a perfume review show, and she's just said that she has over 100 perfumes, and she give me any samples she wants. I'm gonna start a Zeech army, and I just want to smell like all of them simultaneously to confuse my opponent. Night Scribe.
I would like a sample of a not Death Rattle, Dead Walkers
Okay,
army. So
something that matches a zombie Deadwalker army. Okay, there we
zombies,
go.
corpse
Yeah,
carts, dire wolves.
yeah. Yeah, I see it. Night Scribe coming in with a really good one. It's like, ew, this smells like death, and being like, yes, that's the point. I'm so glad that you picked up on that. Was trying for 3-Day-Old Corpse, and you got it. So yeah, look, we could go on this forever, and it is a wonderful topic of conversation. But it's late at night. You've got a day to get to, and a dog that is obviously demanding your attention. Thank you so much. Is there anything I would love to end with just shameless plugs? Do you have any shameless plugs you'd love to throw out there?
Sure. First one I want to plug is the new perfume I'm putting together
Yes.
with Cool Bunny, which
Yep.
is Essence of Death.
Essence of Death. Yep. Great.
Should be a limited edition.
Notes of what? What are the head notes? Talk to me about what I'm
I
going
don't
to
know.
say.
I think Cool Bunny is my head of R&D. So let's see what we put together.
Okay, Cool
Stay
Bunny.
tuned. Kickstarter's coming up
Yep.
soon.
Cool Bunny. It's on to
7th
you. The
of-
scent
of
is
July.
yours. Yep. Good. What else? What else have we got? Shameless plugs.
Shameless plug. So I have my own YouTube channel, AOS Coach. Really, it's about helping people get better. We do a lot of cool things like a faction focus, where we deep dive into different allegiances with players who play these armies, and we go deep into how to play the army, build the army, play with the army. It's super fun.
And it's
What
also
else?
it's like having watched them. Your shows are like really they're quite well. I want to say like well educational, but I realize that makes me sound like an idiot. But it's because you get in people who really know what they're doing about them. They're really really clean, clear shows that if you are interested in playing them, I mean, I would listen to them just to know what to expect from other armies. But it's well researched, good people on them. And if people jump on, so I've got, if you look down the bottom, actually right now, at Anthony Magro, AnthonyMagro is your Twitter handle. Where can they find you on YouTube?
Just type in AOS Coach, you'll find us.
AOS Coach.
If you're interested in Gits, we did a show with Donal and Seth Cook. So we did spiders, grots, trogs, and all the good stuff.
All the fun places to be with Gits.
Yeah, yeah. So Twitter is probably where I'm most active on the Facebook groups, TGA, but probably mostly Twitter and YouTube. So, and I also do a fortnightly show where we talk about Australia and New Zealand with my
Australia,
co-host Shadowhammer slash Liam
the AOS
Vermouth. So
villain.
he's the villain. So it's the coach and the villain, but it's a lot of fun, and I think ultimately I'm about showcasing the community.
And giving a
So
good
that's that.
spread of it too. So,
Yeah.
Night Scribe just commenting in there. Casually fragrant is Cool Bunny's a channel for smells and all things olfactory. So if you are interested in that side of things, that's probably the place to go. Obviously, that's where you're going for your teamed up plan for doing things. Now, the other side. So, what can we expect from you coming up? Any like spoilers you want to give us? What allegiances are you looking at in the future?
Yeah, so I had to reschedule faction focus Flesh Eater Court. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got Captain America, Bill Souza,
Yep. Good.
as well as a few other people talking about Flesh Eater Court. So more than just Gristle Gore, like let's actually show how to do this
Actually, and
successfully.
look, let's be honest. That is a wonderfully rhyming name for a show, right? More than Gristle Gore. Like that's just, it's good. It's great.
More than Gristle Gore.
Mm-hmm.
Got a Slanish show coming up with Joel McGrath from Measured Gaming and Mitch and our next Down Under Stigma, which is the fortnightly show. I'm going to have the Australian Master Dave Kerr
Mm-hmm.
and Jordan Burgess, who are going to talk about their journey transitioning from 40K to Sigma
Mm-hmm.
and what they've kind of learnt along the way. So I know there's a lot of people who play 40K who are interested in coming over to Sigma. So we want to talk a bit about what prompted that journey, how they got there, what they learned, what were their experiences now they're on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to learn the two different sides because I haven't played 40K since fourth edition.
For a
So
little while.
I've still got a lot of Metal Sisters of Battle behind me. So I haven't touched them for a while, but curious to learn this how the scene's changed and ultimately uh, help those people from 40K move to Sigma if they want to
Yeah,
try it.
and look, let's like I know Jordan from back in Australia, and I was mates with him while he transitioned from 40K to Age of Sigma, and it was actually really interesting watching kind of his journey and the discovery of like the way the game plays and objectives and everything like that, and it's interesting the way that Age of Sigmar is like a bad disease in that it just like a mosquito bites you once and very quickly it kind of like it grows. And so where I was seeing him a lot painting and building and playing a game here or there, he got hungry for Age of Sigmar so fast. So I would love to hear his take on all of that. Nemesis saying in the chat that he really dug your faction focus series, by the way. So and obviously more of those yet to come. Chuckle Buddy saying hello, mate. We're just saying goodbye. I've spent all weekend watching your beautiful face from Bobo, and it's time for me to disappear. And also, Hypno Kraken has been subscribed for 15 months. So we've had one hobby baby together, you and me, Hypno Kraken, and I have just recovered from that one, and we're just about to have another one. So I can't wait to have our next little hobby tadpole. That's going to be really fun. And like lastly but not leastly, we've covered the socials, we've covered the show. If people want information about Sydney GT, where are they going to go?
They can just type in Sydney GT on Facebook. So the
Mm-hmm.
Australian community lives on Facebook.
Yep.
So we have an event up there. I released the pack on both Twitter and on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good pack. I think it should build confidence in people who want to come. Any advice coming to Australia, whether it's for CanCon or Sydney GT, happy to field your questions.
Mm.
So at Anthony Magro is where you can find me on the Twitterverse.
Yeah, and it's and I would say as someone who's been to Sydney GT, it is an amazing event. Every year there's something new and something really cool about it. Last year it was the kind of the secondary objectives. What were they called again? The schemes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I like to see what's happening in the world and steal ideas. And
Mm.
one of those ideas was a different way of doing agendas or like
Mm.
different objectives before GW even released their own secondary objectives. So just to make sure it's not just about crushing your opponent in the ground and with kill points, it's about the objective and having a great game. I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get.
And my experience of Sydney GT has been that I have always had like a really good balance of competitive war dollies with fun games and cool stuff going on in the background. So yeah, thank you so much. Is there any last things you want to leave us with before we wrap it up?
Thanks to everyone in the chat. You guys have been hilarious. I thought this was
Yep.
going to go for about 40 minutes to an hour. It's
I
gone
am
2.5. So
so
this has been
sorry. I am so,
no,
so sorry.
this is great. As long as no one tells work, I'm gonna have to catch up and work till like 8 o'clock, and like that's what I'm gonna do, right? Like I'm gonna work till 8. But the chat's been amazing. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on the channel. Definitely, if you're interested in my stuff, check it out, and then shout out to the Australian community and specifically the Sydney community.
Oh,
So
all those
we are
beautiful
the
people that
best.
I do
Sydney is
miss.
#1. Uh,
I
so
am Switzerland. I feel like I've said this before, Anthony, and that I feel like I'm kind of Juliet in all of this. I grew up in Brisbane, and my first War Dolly experiences playing Warhammer Fantasy were in Brisbane and in the Queensland community. And then I moved to New South Wales as Age of Sigmar came out. So I was a Sydneyite, a Sydney Sider through Age of Sigmar. So I've always felt torn. I don't know where I exist. So I'm just a beautiful Juliet being romanced by my Romeo. And I don't think I'm not ashamed to say that because at the very least I die second and everybody has to watch my death scene and it's super sad and tragic. So I'll take that one right to the bank. People saying that they're loving the wisdom. There was, look, let's say we started with wisdom. Is it fair to say we started with wisdom, Anthony, and then ended on something that was more Beyonce Taylor Swift related?
I think we hit our peak with the music selection. I feel like the
Yep.
music and perfume, like show me another show where anyone's talking about pairing up music and smells
Smell.
with Age
There.
of Sigmar.
Yeah, we're the cutting edge of war dollies. And I think that's the perfect place to leave us. If you're a subscriber, if you're a Patreon, if you even if you just follow us on Twitch or Twitter or any way that you support the show, we really appreciate it. I was saying it a little bit earlier, but every single cent, dollar, anything bit that comes into this show is turned into new product and new cameras, sound equipment, everything for it. So we really do, really, really love you. Thank you so much, Anthony, for giving us your time. I'm sure I'll speak to you again in the next little while, given that you've got Sydney GT and so much stuff coming up. Any last words on the Grots, given that they did come third at a 200-player tournament?
Grots are the best. We're going to stab you in the knee, and this is just the start of many world dominations that are coming. So,
And
uh,
yeah, entirely appropriate as well. Thank you very much. If you're in the chat, everyone say a big thank you to the AOS coach, Anthony. You can find him on Twitter, you can find him on Facebook, you can find him on Instagram. Well, I assume I'm just saying all of the different social medias, but most of all, check him out on YouTube. He has a weekly / bi-weekly show, depending on how often it comes together, and focusing on factions. So go back, check through all of his history because there's heaps of cool shit there. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I guess we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much, Anthony.
thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, take it easy. Bye week, Grano week, mini bomb.